encouraged her to go to community college, and she did, and made a world of difference. She came out of that, and then she transferred to Michigan State and went to, graduated. And
it's a low pressure environment. It's a good education, and it gives you a chance. I mean, most kids that start out in college have no idea what they want to do long term, and it's a very I don't say nurturing because it's not really that, but it's a low pressure environment for you to kind of start to assess things.
Yeah. But no, I'm a strong proponent of community colleges. I think they just have making an enormous contribution. Morning, sir.
A little low, but.
John,
Hi, good morning. How are you? John Labrio. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
I'm on the finance committee of Kiwa,
So Dora,
so I thought this
you can
might
do
be.
this.
Oh, we're good.
Or
We're
you
good.
can
We're
do
welcome.
the
We're
arrow
welcome.
buttons.
And what is your wife's name?
Joanne?
Your last name is Hennessy?
Yes.
Is she the one that just joined the planning?
Mr. Labriola?
I met her the other day. She was here.
He sees from here.
Very nice.
He what?
If you want to wave at him, you gotta come over here.
Yeah, she's got great experience.
Tell him I'm waving to him. Good morning.
And she's interested.
Yeah. I'm John Knopf.
John, I'm Paul Hennessy. Nice thing. I listened to the session yesterday with John Taylor.
Hey, Doretta, you want to sit up there? Jess,
John Taylor is
It's the real deal.
he is the real deal. Definitely the real deal.
He's a interesting story. He's a homegrown boy. I mean, he's born and raised in Guatemala. Born and raised in I think he still lives in Guatemala. No, I know he does. I know he does. And he interned.
Where did he go to school? South Carolina State for his undergraduate, and then maybe South Carolina for graduate school?
I don't know.
Two different places, but I think both in the state.
And he started working with us as an intern when he was working for the for the city of Charleston in the planning department, or the county. The county, yeah.
And he's quite talented.
Hi, good morning.
Okay, working good.
I like that idea.
I just looked at it and I said,
Working on things. I took some time last night to study things you forwarded to me, just a couple of them.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm gonna do is probably Tuesday, because I'm gonna send a note out to the people that we know of.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call, send a note out saying, here's the plan. Both of those.
hey.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Well, our planning crew was here last night.
Yeah.
So hopefully
Okay.
we'll get 2 or 3 more.
Good morning, Craig.
Yeah, hopefully, okay, that sounds good.
I'll let you see what.
You're right on time.
Okay.
Start the meeting and then we'll get
Yeah.
Good morning.
Oh, no, okay.
How's the campaign going? How's your campaign going?
Well,
I know you can't really campaign.
it's been a worthwhile experience. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah,
But seriously,
good.
and plus I've never done anything like this before.
Well, let me put it this way. That, having watched the last board meeting online, some degree of civility would help a lot.
What is, he's running for people.
I think we're live. Yeah. Stephanie, we ready to go?
I'm sorry, what is your name, sir?
Paul Hennessy.
Okay, I was wondering, because your wife,
She's my much better.
she was just get put on the, she's gonna put on the planning commission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when I was
Oh, crap, I forgot my,
They couldn't find that body. Yep. Oh, it was in the paper.
Wait till Stephanie comes back.
Because Rob was out.
Is Dorota
Like 11
first
in
up?
trouble.
And Doretta's first up.
Her husband. Stephanie, Rob, Beach Patrol. He leads Beach Patrol. He's a great, great guy. Right. Well, evidently there were 2 kids on the boat with the person, and then they dropped the 2 kids off in the marshes, maybe to do whatever, and then went out, and when they went to see him, the boat was just circling. Yeah, because I asked that too. I said, well, did they find the boat? Right.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the third and last day of our planning retreat. And as would be expected, the best until last. Our shining chief financial officer is making her way to the front of the room. Good morning, Dorota.
Good morning, Dorota.
Hi, Dorota.
Yes, so today we're going to start with finance department, and our main purpose is to safeguard the town's long-term financial health. We want to preserve the town's financial stability while ensuring a positive cash flow in the event of temporary revenue shortfalls or anticipated major expenditures. So we can continue delivering the highest quality services to our residents and businesses on the island. Since I've been here even 6 years, and some council and the mayor, we've experienced major storms. We had cleanup costs. We experienced revenue shortfalls due to pandemic. Well, luckily, because the town has a good, healthy financial balance, we operated as normal. We continue delivering services as we are. We didn't have to, like other jurisdictions or some jurisdictions or businesses, furlough people or laid off people, or we never decrease any of the services, police protection, or whatever we deliver to our residents. So having that good financial balance it's a very comfortable situation, and we want to continue to have that. So one of the initiatives or my goals for this year is to prepare a probably 5-year financial plan that will include some contingencies for a situation like that, like revenue shortfalls or unexpected expenditures. In the past, as a part of the budget process, we had the 5-year revenue projections, but I would like to expand it to a full financial plan that will consider also expenditures, and with some assumptions and some historical analysis of the data we can do that. We know the personnel cost, we know some contractual services, include capital improvements, which that is, to me, the capital improvement is the biggest challenge, because it takes all departments pretty much, and efforts and feedback from a lot of people to start strategically planning of what has to be done.
Right.
Within not just next year, but in the future. So the financial plan has a lot of values, and it stimulates discussion and gives you some perspective as a policymakers, helps you with making those decisions. It's a useful tool to prevent financial challenges. As I mentioned, we had them, but because we do have that good balance, we survive, and without any interruptions in our services.
What do you envision as part of this stimulating discussion with us, with council, with?
So that's why I want to introduce it now. That this is going to be a part of our budget process. And okay. One thing I want to mention that it is, the 5-year plan would not authorize expenditures past the budgeted year. It will just illustrate how the financial condition will, the town's financial condition will be, assuming that those expenditures or those revenues are collected. So I do, well, you will be approving that financial plan. So that's why there is an involvement, and any, you know, it kind of gives you a, just some time to think about, maybe there is some initiatives or some programs, some services that you would like, as you know, as you hear from the residents, that we want to possibly add or modify or change, or so that's where your involvement is important.
You know, thinking ahead over the next 5 years, one of the factors I'd love to see us include is the issues that surround, we're going to face an inflationary period clearly for some time here, which is going to affect a lot of our costs because everything is going up. At the same time, even though we're restricted in terms of what we can do with our balances, we're going to see increasing rate environment. So if the Fed's going to raise rates 3 times this year and 3 times the following year, we'll have some impact, positive impact on our income because of that, but probably offset and maybe more than offset by inflation. So let's try to factor some of that in there so we know what the implications of on both sides of the balance sheet sort of are for that stuff, because it's going to be different. We've been in a nice, quiet economic environment where the market's been up, and I know we're limited in how we can invest, which actually hasn't been very helpful because bond rates and stuff have been down so much, but that's clearly going to change. But inflation, I mean, it's stunning how much everything is costing more now. And I think we face the same problem here. Our services are going to just cost more.
So yeah, that needs to be taken into consideration while projecting the expenditures, even like I said, the operating expenditures. I do know the historical numbers, but inflation has to be taken into account. We usually, when we do 2 or 3%, that may not be a case, you know, for years past the budgeted year. So
years back, it never came to fruition. I think we've talked about this. The state of South Carolina wasn't in as good a financial position as it is now,
Right.
and had talked about the possibility of some change to the whole accommodation tax stuff. You know, however, those monies flow in and it flows back out to the communities in that calculus, but it never came to fruition. You know, that's another what if. You know, if the state just isn't doing as well in that flow of income that we see, that we rely on, and as do others. You know, as we saw on, you know, Tuesday, $2 million was our, you know, gross state accommodation tax, and we passed out $1.5 million. But, you know, nonetheless, if that would be reduced, then all of the entities that apply for state accommodation tax would be affected. So it's another. You're right. It's another what if that would occur.
Yeah, and then it helps also assess the commitments that you wanna, signing contracts right now. What and with the expansion even of our office, the staff, it's you know, good to see if we can, what can we do more if we need to do more. So I think there is a lot of value. I don't think I need to convince you more that would be a good product. I just I will have this as a part of our budget discussion. And just to go very quick, just to put it an outline of the timing of this. This is the budget calendar for this year, and our Ways and Means meeting in February. We're gonna talk about revenues. In March, it's going to be expenditures. So that's where my goal is to have that at that time. But again, I just want to mention it early. So just sometimes you need have some time to think about things, and all your feedback is, I really appreciate that, and help me to develop that. Because sometimes when things are presented at the day of the meeting, it doesn't give you time to think about it, to analyze it a little bit.
Good.
So that's another goal that kind of goes together with the same purpose of safeguarding our financial health is I want to have another look and maybe refine or maybe add new financial policies that we have. Currently, we have 3 policies. Our fund balance policy is states that the fund balance in a general fund should not be less than 30% of the total budgeted general fund expenditures. If that fund balance goes below 30%, the town council or the finance department, with your approval, need to come back with a plan how to replenish that. And as of end of last fiscal year, our fund balance was 12.6 million, which is about 235% of those expenditures. So that means that for a little over 2 years, if we don't have any revenues, we have enough to operate as normal. Given there is no revenues for 2 years. Mm-hmm. It is a healthy fund balance. There is some recommendation from finance organization that it should be between 2 to 3 months of expenditures. There is also being, coastal community. We also have
additional.
Yes. Floodings, hurricanes, so that fund balance could be drained in after one storm.
Yes.
So there is really no, there is, and that's the thing. Is there any comfortable level of reserves that we feel that we want to keep?
Rhoda, the 30% fund balance, we talk about the level of comfort. Just remind me again, so 30%, I know this was a policy that I think we created maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I don't recall, but was the 30% a recommendation from our auditors, or was that just from the, I think we had like a small committee or something that had, I don't know if Dan were here, but I know maybe Chris Wydock was involved in terms of establishing this, or John Wilson may have been involved.
I think it was Mr. Wilson. So we did. I look at different municipalities and to come up with that number. So the 30% came. It is high comparing to others.
Sure.
Usually municipalities pretty much struggle to balance the budget. So 30% is comfortable. Based on other jurisdictions, but it's something that some food for thought. Do you feel that this is comfortable? And like you said, at this moment we are way above that. We are at 235%, and just to put that all in the numbers for you. Geez, I can't see. And this policy is also, it's only for the general fund, the first column, general fund. So this is pretty much our operating fund where we can spend as we wish for all the services. All other funds don't have any policies. However, some of them are restricted by law, like state accommodation fund. We currently have a big balance in that. We have a little over $1 million, but that has to be spent within 2 years. So we don't need additional policies or any restriction to this. Same with the county accommodation tax. That money, pretty much what we get, we have to spend that year. We through the years, we collected some balance, a little balance in it, but that's not a norm. Same with the, local and hospitality taxes. Those are restricted, how they can be spent, but we don't have any policies on those level of those reserves. And another, just a little perspective in it. So I just went back for 10 years to see how that fund balance, and this is consolidated, all general fund plus all, all restricted funds. As you can see that we pretty much through the years, even with, like I mentioned, with those storm cleanups, with the construction of this building, some one-time addition, some one-time extraordinary expenses will continue growing that balance.
Presumably your 5-year plan will contemplate things like, a storm in year 2 or a storm in year 4, and understand what impact that may have, so that as we look out, we can see from a contingent standpoint what it looks like.
So that's the plan. I want to have one scenario, nothing happens, and we just operating as normal, and then add to it a scenario where something happens, a storm happens, or we can play with it then to put different contingencies in it.
Rhoda, will
Yes.
this also take into account the reality that business licenses and permits will likely fall as construction activity falls on the island over the next 7 years?
So that is important to take into account. Given we don't raise our fees,
Right.
That's why working on a plan like this, there is a lot of assumptions. That given that we have the same level in our fees, because the permit fees and the license fees, they actually are up to the council, so we can change it if we feel that at some point we don't bring enough revenue from it. That can be raised too. But given we're not changing anything, and with the permits, I'm sure we will see some drop in that revenue, because the new construction brings more permit revenue than renovations. Well, I'm sure we'll see more renovations because the housing, the houses are getting older, but not as many new construction. However, with the license fees, the contractors bring, a big chunk of it, but every business needs a license. So I feel like that will not affect as much business license revenue as permits.
Yeah, and one of the things too that we always, and you all know this, but we always reiterate, and it's in our budget at a glance, is that the town here, with our budget, we are driven by the construction and tourism, essentially, because the town of Kiwa, we do not levy property taxes. Everything that you pay goes directly to the county, doesn't come back to the town. So when we were even looking at, when the pandemic hit, we actually scurried and looked at our budget, because we said, oh, this is going to impact tourism, that's going to impact our budget. So we then started budgeting down and reevaluating our revenue, because we are, as a town, as a municipality, our budget really is driven by the economy, how well construction and tourism, and of course if that drops, then we're going to see a drop more likely in our revenues. And so as we do the projections, sometimes it's kind of tough, but because we are really heavily reliant on those two forms of economy, and we've done great during the pandemic.
Because everybody came.
Everybody
Yeah.
came, so
Yeah.
we actually had a
We did
pretty
the
good,
opposite.
pretty good couple
They
years.
came and they stayed.
They came and they stayed.
They
That's
built
right.
houses.
Yeah, I know, they've improved everything.
It's important to note, the only thing
That's the
we,
piece that makes me the most uncomfortable, is just how dependent we are upon the economy and tourism. And it makes me feel very vulnerable.
I
Yeah.
think going through that budget preparation during the pandemic was an excellent exercise because it showed our dependence on everything. And just not to know what will happen, you know, no one's going to be coming, no one's going to be renting. It really challenged your capabilities.
Yes, and we've seen 20% decrease in revenue that year
Right.
for 2019. When the island was closed over a month, we didn't bring any revenues in accommodation taxes. Hospitality restaurants were closed, so
Right.
and it was just a little over a month, right?
Yes.
Then after that, we've seen a huge increase because everyone started enjoying, being able to go out and come to the beach, but this is still not, I don't know if this is a norm or not. I've been trying to follow CVB projections and, or any projections on a situation, a tourism situation, because it is our big revenue generator, and we still not there. There's still not a lot of international travel. Some do internationally will travel, but we still not at the norm, or maybe this is a new norm.
The ability to diversify to any extent is a problem for a municipality, and the annexation of Freshfields, that was one of the driving reasons that we proceeded with the annexation, was to have some alternate revenue stream, and it was successful. The other comment, the ability to have any insurance, any coverage for protection, is really, other than this building, I don't think we have any coverage for anything. So I mean, the beach,
Our bridge, we have covered.
Yeah, the bridge.
the coverage for the bridge, yeah. So I mean, this fund balance becomes just critically important.
Yeah.
And-
And the real wild card is not a mediocre storm. The real
Right.
crux is just an overwhelmingly bad,
Right.
serious storm, and the damage that would come with that. That's
Yes.
really the wild card.
Yeah, and as a municipality, there's two things, Gerald, if you just remind, the fund balance in 2020, the reason why the drop is we paid off this building. But to answer, John, your question with regards, when we've done some preliminary like tabletop exercise, that if for some reason we're hit with a Cat 5, what happens? What can we do as a municipality? Because ultimately, we believe Kiwa would not have the ability. We essentially, as municipality, essentially steps in and takes control. So
Right.
in municipality, we would have, council will have the power to be able to do a temporary property tax if we
Right.
had.
Right.
We can go out for different types of funding, and Dorota can talk about this in terms of
It's based on the assessed value of the property on Kiwa. So our
simply get a loan, I
yes,
guess.
we can issue
Bonds,
bonds up
yeah,
to
that's what it is.
bonds up to 20, like currently based on 6/30/21 information. Up to 28 million. We can borrow up to that because the debt ceiling is regulated by law.
And we look to that instead of a line of credit, correct?
We
That's
could do a
correct.
line of credit as a municipality, but it's.
You what?
We cannot. It's
No, you
essentially,
cannot?
as a municipality, so essentially a bond is
We'd have
that,
to
Oh, right,
that we're
right,
doing.
right.
And so there's different things that we will be able to do,
Right.
and we recognize that, the fund balance, what we have. Essentially, if there's a significant storm, it may, some things that we might be able to do with that we would need to do to get the town hall up and running, to do some things. If the bridge is gone, we already have a plan with Philip and Jordan to be able to bring in a temporary bridge. And so that little cushion that we have could, essentially be gone fairly quickly,
Quickly.
but we as a municipality have things that we will be able to do, a geo bond,
And
a
our
temporary
ability-
property tax that you sunset. So there's a number of things that we will be able to do.
Right, and our ability to diversify our revenue base is pretty limited too. I mean, we're not
Right.
gonna coax a big manufacturing facility
Right.
to come onto.
No, we
Yeah.
don't want
I mean,
that.
that. So we're still gonna be reliant largely on
The tourism economy
tourism,
and construction.
And what other building construction may come as a result, probably as a result of the tourism activity, really.
Right.
But to me, the expenditure side is the one that's most unpredictable because we don't know what's going to happen weather-wise.
Yes.
Garuda, that would be interesting if you could talk to some of your counterparts, especially in those coastal communities that did get, big storms. How the level of FEMA reimbursement. I mean, although again, it's not insured, but FEMA does step in and provide.
Well, Hilton Head, they had that big hit with Matthew. They got a good level of FEMA reimbursement, but they had a large expense. They have a property tax though, and they actually had to increase their property tax to help pay the debt. FEMA would do, it's a tier, but they would do 75% or 85%. And then of course, for Hilton Head, they had some things because they have a lot of gated communities. And so you have to go through this private property debris removal, and if you don't, FEMA will not reimburse you back for anything you do behind the gate. That's why for us,
It's a big issue.
it's an issue that when there's a storm, we have to determine the level of storm and if Kika's going to do all the cleaning behind the gate. Because if we go behind the gate, potentially we won't get reimbursed back now unless we get pre-approval from FEMA to go behind the gate. So Hilton Head, I know with Matthew, there was a long delay in cleaning up because they had to get FEMA to approve them to clean up the private debris. Some of the gated communities who couldn't wait, if the town helped, the town would get reimbursed for that portion. So, but they had a 75 or sometimes it may have been 70 or 80% reimbursement, but the cost was so great because of that storm, they had to actually do an increase in property tax to help cover the cost.
Cover the cost, yeah.
Yeah.
So we could get through it, but
Yeah.
it would be complicated, and the gate complicates
Definitely.
it pretty significantly because that's a different set of rules.
That's correct.
So,
And also we had this discussion, it was with the previous council to just consider part of that exercise, building a plan, to help the businesses on the island. We possibly may waive after the storm, permit fees or license fees just to help to rebuild the island.
Right.
I'm talking about, like a huge storm. That's something to consider too. Just put some thinking into it to, to stimulate the process of rebuilding.
It'd be a worthwhile exercise.
I feel like we shouldn't be pessimistic though, because we do have a good, we had some events that were extraordinary. We survived them with, as you can see, the fund balance shows that increasing trend, and so that's all good. But just thinking about some bad case scenarios, and with that, a couple years ago, we also added the reserve policies as part of our they were approved through the resolution by the council. So we set up those emergency fund and capital improvement funds, and and they come from local accommodation and hospitality taxes, and it's 20% of those revenues that go to each of those funds. And just to go back, this is actually covering, well, you can't see the balance because the little blank is covering it, but it's the emergency fund is 580,000 as of end of last fiscal year, and the capital fund is 5.2 million. And those big infrastructure project that we have, the parkway resurfacing and landscaping, we did not pull from those reserves. We paid from operating funds.
operating expenses.
So that fund has been pretty much adding to it. So
Could we have paid for it out of the capital fund?
we could,
Yes.
but we did, as I mentioned, those funds I'm sorry, I'm going the other way. Some of the, like the local accommodation, hospitality funds, we really shouldn't have a lot of reserves in there because, so we paid from there as part of the tourism, and rather than taking from capital to kind of deplenish those reserves. So, So we'll continue, we'll continue adding to those funds and keeping and that's where it will be helpful to think strategically from from all departments to Jim was just talking yesterday about the beach renourishment as a coming. We'll see a report coming sometime this year. Right. And I always ask Jim to talk to the consultant to see if they see something in the near future. If it's not this year, near future, and what would be the cost? Because right. The last renourishment we had years ago, it was a little over 2 million. So, right. So those projects go into millions. They're not little projects.
Daruda, John, JT, to that marsh management plan the marsh management consultant that we talked about yesterday, as we talk about, what is it, CCS or the firm that gives us the coastal that gives us the review of the beach. And again, the what ifs, if something would happen to the beach or project out, will they be able to do, to any extent, similarly, a what if on the marsh side of the island? I mean, we basically have nothing.
Oh, yeah, because aren't they potentially one may do the RFQ?
That's kind of what we would want to identify for them to be able to tell us, are there significant impacts in the future that would compromise a certain area? So hopefully we will get that out of this study.
So I mean, I think that would be helpful.
Yes.
As we advance in our own thinking, again, it's not only just the beach side, but it's the marsh side, and
yes.
Okay, well, that'll be helpful.
Like I mentioned, the policies that we just talked about, they are actually in our, they approved by you, and those are policies. But I have some maybe for consideration to look at some new policies, we don't have anything on the balanced budget, and the budget can be balanced three different, or the definition of the balanced budget, the legally balanced budget, that's actually by law, we have to have a legally balanced budget, but that's the easy way, because all the sources to balance it could be not just revenues, but it could be your reserves, it could be borrowings. So meaning that you can't just have a wishful thinking of expenditures and thinking the money may come in, but you have to show that with the debt limits given by the law, some there is a lot of consideration. But so the balanced budget, legally balanced budget, is by law we have to have it. There is an operationally balanced budget that doesn't use the reserves. Or it just pretty much balances revenues, expenditures through operating expenditures. And structurally balanced budget is where the operating revenues exceed or expenditures in that year and go into reserves. So possibly if you feel like we should have a policy that we should have a structurally balanced budget every year. We had this exercise with previous council during pandemic, where we were told to come with the balanced budget, and some things have to be put on hold. Some projects were put on hold. There was freezes on, for example, like employees. Salaries or raises, and that's why there was the year when we did amendment to the budget, where some projects like I think the website was one of them, that
Right.
they were put on hold. So, but we do not have a policy, like written policy. It was the instruction from the council and the mayor to come back with the structurally balanced budget. So just something to think about. Did you feel that we may want to have a policy like that, that's comfortable, more, gives this extra comfort to you all and the island?
And also recognize that the budget, when the budget's presented to council, the budget's presented and comes from the mayor. So the mayor could theoretically, any three of those things, say, this is how I want the budget. So staff helps the mayor put the budget together, but technically the budget is presented and comes from the mayor to council for approval. So as Dorota was saying, a previous mayor, Mr. Weaver, he essentially wanted an operational budget during the pandemic.
Right.
And so as staff, we had to then put that together, and then he presented to council for approval.
I think this is an interesting thing that requires some thought. This
Yes.
is not an easy question to answer.
No.
Yeah.
And that's why I just want to do it now, not during the meeting when we talk
Right.
about the budget, because just give you some time to think about it,
Yeah.
maybe just to get to this comfortable level of like where we want to be. And another just for your consideration, another policy is the stabilization or rainy day fund, which is usually a percentage of
Reserves.
general fund that is set aside for situation like that, like during pandemic, that you pretty much designate percentage of the general fund, the 12 million that we have, that let's say 10% will be only used if we experience revenue shortfalls, and then it could be covered to pretty much operations, so we don't limit any services, or we operating as normal, and that will build through the years, hopefully as general fund builds up too, but just something to just something to consider, something to think
It's
about.
kind of a self-insurance policy.
Yes.
Rhoda, if one goes down the route of a rainy day fund, does that by definition mean that your budget process is not operationally balanced, because you've already said that you're not going to use any balances, reserves, or debt to fund the budget? So you're stuck with either a structurally balanced or a legally balanced budget process at that point.
But pretty much, yeah, it could be, and this is up to the council to define that. How do you want to, it is a broad, definition of a rainy day, but it could be used to balance the budget in a year where you want to, accomplish operationally balanced budget. So, but it will be up to you to define how that money could be spent, or maybe we don't need it. I was just trying to think of items that could help you feel comfortable, sleep better at night. So that's something to think about for. And again, we'll address this again during the budget process. And
Dorota, do you see any other coastal communities along here with any of those, the rainy day stabilization type funds, or is this something, I guess, in your looking at other municipalities and going to meetings in Columbia, are you seeing more municipalities doing something like this? Is that why you recommend it?
So actually, it's more of the West Coast. When I reach out to the group of, financial officers
GFOA?
from GFOA and ask about like how do you. There is a lot of discussion about the projections, revenue projections right now, and one of those things, a lot of municipalities experience had bad experiences through the pandemic. They did have to, decrease the services. So they actually are trying to rebuild those. So this is more on the West Coast. I have not. I'm gonna go next week to Columbia actually, and I will reach out to people more locally, in our state, how if they had it. But it's very popular on the West Coast, California. But for them maybe the fires and, a lot
Right.
of earthquakes, it's more of a norm than, extraordinary events, so. But I will let you know how others are.
Yeah, I think coastal communities, again, the reason the West Coast worries about it is they have things like earthquakes or
Yes.
fires and so on that create
Mudslides.
crises.
Yeah.
Mudslides, and sometimes they happen in
More
concert
frequently.
with one age. Well, you have a fire and then you have a
Yeah.
mudslide the next time you get rain. So coastal communities on the East Coast would be interesting because of the same issues we
Yes.
face. But I can also see how if you established a stabilization fund, it is kind of an insurance policy, which is good. But I can also see how year to year, legally balanced, operationally balanced, structurally balanced, you could move in and out of those depending on the circumstances you face. So that's a tougher one to say. Maybe you'd say, I'd like to be this way normally, but in the crisis year, I've
Yeah.
got to move to some other platform. But if you had a stabilization fund, it might change that a little bit. So it's kind of interesting how we could operate
Yeah.
that.
And could be possible that council expands the definition of the emergency fund.
Mm-hmm. It could be kind of a stabilization fund.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't like rainy day.
No.
It's a bad term.
Yeah, no, sure, and like I said, this
Storm
was
surge
just,
day?
just some ideas for you to think about, and
Yeah. No, good.
how we. The only thing, the rainy day fund, if it's a part of general fund, I mean, we just need to make sure that our emergency fund right now it's coming from restricted funds. That we will, we do have a good number of tourists on the island, so we do justify funding a lot of even cleanup because the
Right.
tourists have to
Yeah.
get there
That's an
from
int-
those
that's a-
funds.
that's
But
an important
the
differential there.
rainy day fund was more designed to just basic operations that will
Yeah.
be paid from general funds. So,
Gotcha.
but we can add it to emergency. Right now we have 20% from hospitality and local accommodation going, but we can add another 20% from general fund. I mean, I didn't mean to do that. A general
Yeah, yeah.
fund to be designated as part of emergency fund for operational,
I got you. Yeah.
expenditures.
Yeah.
So,
Just expand the definition.
Mm-hmm.
so that's all up to the policy. However
Yeah.
we want to do it, we can just spell it out the way we want to do it. And once it goes down, it has to be like Mr. Prickett said. We can say that in the event of emergency or something, it could be by council used for different, uses.
Good.
When,
That helps.
when do you envision, could you go back to your calendar slide? Yeah. When do you envision this, are you envisioning a workshop, a council workshop? Are you, at what point are you going to do preparatory work to the 5-7-year plan and present it to council and talk about these policies? What are your thoughts on that, and where would that fit into this calendar?
So I was thinking in March, at the meeting in March, when we have expenditure, the first meeting in February is revenues. The second meeting, the Ways and Means meeting in March is expenditures. So you'll see, before we were just concentrating on the expenditures, but at that time we can look, because we already have revenues, we can look at those numbers, we can look at the 5 years, we can look at those policies then, and then present it as in a April meeting where the budget goes to your approval for Ways and Means approval.
So that March 28th meeting, March 28th meeting is kind of the
Yes.
workshop.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be expanded to include some of these issues, yeah.
Yes. So, I also more goals for this year, and again, I mean, they all together in finance. We do have main purpose. So I do want, especially with the expansion of our office, we have more staff, senior staff that is involved in the budget process. I want for them to get, or I mean, for me to initiate with them to be a little more involvement of the review of the budget. We do our budget process starts with pretty much department heads providing the budget request to Stephanie. So it's, you know, a big part of it. But then we do have a process that every month I send the budget reports to them where they can review the actual numbers compared to the budget. But I would like, you know, for all of us to be a lot more involved. I know the budget document is it's a big document and long document, and people don't like to spend a lot of time on it. But I think maybe we have our monthly meetings, maybe add few minutes to the meeting where we can look at that and for them also to think about the future, you know, like maybe I want to add something or a new initiative or new program or something. So if you're part of the planning process and review the actuals, you'll have a better idea what can we afford that? Is this, you know, feasible to do in the future? And also, as this, I want to just review our procurement policy. The policy itself was adopted 30 years ago. There was one amendment in 2005.
Did you say 30 years?
30, original, yeah. It's in a code. It's in our code, and it serves us well. It has a lot of good internal controls, you know, processes for bidding, for procurement, but I just want to have spend a lot of time to review it. Maybe it needs to be changed, a little modern, you know, and I want to make sure that all what's in it, we follow it. So as an internal control tool, if it serves us well. So I want to do that probably the second half of the year after the audit, or you know, it serves well, but you know, like everything, maybe needs some updating.
Probably.
And finally, the last of our initiatives is to conduct physical inventory. Every year with the audit, I do update our depreciation schedules, our inventory, but I want to do actual physical count. We have, our policy is $500 to capitalize items is $500. So we have a lot of little items that maybe are not functioning anymore, but they can still be on my inventory schedule. And we have about over 650,000 in equipment, computers, furniture and fixtures. So I just want to make sure that those schedules, I feel they're pretty up to date, but I think every couple of years it's good to actually conduct a physical inventory. I did it when I first started that year. And I think it's time to do it too. So, and I want to get it done before the audit. So, you know, my audit schedules are up to date.
That makes sense.
So.
What did you find when you did it the first time? Was it reasonably accurate when you got here?
Well, there was a lot of items that, you know, computers or that haven't been in use anymore. But and with, you know, our colleagues have been doing a lot of cleanup in the garage. There's a lot of things probably that are already out, but you know, they might not be. My schedules have not been updated for it, so we'll do that.
So the answer to your question is it needs some work.
It needs every couple. Yeah, I think it's a good exercise to do. So
a couple of questions. how does the timeline of March 28th fit into, John, your timeline for the comprehensive plan review? What's your timeline?
So we would at least begin our individual element review portions in March. And so that will be an ongoing thing, right? I anticipate 3 to 4 months.
Because I can see as we look out 5 to 7 years, there's 3 things that come to mind, and there's probably more. EMS coverage, within that time frame, there's going to be an ER down there, and we may or may not be satisfied with services that we're receiving from the county. Hopefully we are, and but anyway, sheriff's office, we may or may not be satisfied with the coverage, and I can't wait to talk with Craig, but having that ER down there is that's a different dynamic that's going to be involved with this community. So the level of service coverage, ARB, we kind of touched on it very haltingly yesterday, but that may or may not happen, or that may or may not, to what extent the community association. I mean, and those are just 3 that just jump into my mind right away, which may be involved, may be articulated in the comprehensive plan review in terms of what we think, and then obviously they clearly have an economic impact. So those are the types of things besides just the numbers, and the math to the numbers and things like that. Just thinking through what may be taking place for this community over the next 5 to 7 years. Could have a, as you say, we were looking at storms and the like, which is clearly a big part of the types of thinking that we have to have. But then again, things are going to be changing here, and I don't know. So, okay.
So the plan, it's not just the 5-year forecast. That's why I want to call it a financial plan and or strategic plan that will, include items like that maybe it's not just the numbers, but
well, future growth, because we have now, when you talk about MUSC ER, even though it's not in the town limits of Kiwa, Seabrook, we're still going to be impacted. But Seafields, which is going to be in the town limits of Kiwa, the impact of that, and there still is room for growth and development in Freshfields. And if they do residential in that section, the impact of that, or if they decide to do commercial. But they still have room to grow within the Freshfield plan development area. So
all of those types of things.
All of those things. And then any growth and development along Beach Walker, which we still have parcel 13 has some available track, as well as we already know the Beach Walker, Upper Beach Walker.
And the whole notion of this, the 5-year financial plan integrated into the comprehensive plan, I think it's just going to be good.
So that's me.
Thank you.
No, that's my whole department. And,
Scott's over there clapping. Is any questions of Dorota before she sits? And I think Brian, are you next before Brian comes up?
Oh, Dorota, this is good stuff. This is really makes you think, and that's what the purpose of these 3 days was for. Good.
Thanks, Dorota.
Thank you,
very,
Dorota.
very much. Uh-oh, he took off his cap. So.
I forget that it's on sometimes. It's kind of part of my head. Is this?
Got those curls going everywhere.
Don't worry.
My barber's been out of commission. It's my winter due. Okay, well, let's talk about some public works.
Isn't your Barbara your wife?
It is.
Yeah,
yes,
so she's been,
okay, so let's talk about the Public Works Department and some goals and initiatives that we have for this year and the upcoming years. So, major goal, kind of overarching goal, to ensure the protection of the residential character of the community. So, a couple initiatives that we have in the works right now that will take place this year and over the coming years. Increase safety along the Kiwa Island Parkway and Beachwalker Drive, as well as our municipal complex, improve the solid waste collection and disposal. We've got disposal on the beach, the roadways, and then we've got residential and commercial solid waste throughout the island. And then maintaining the natural look and feel of Kiwa that's consistent with the design and landscape behind the main gate. We want to have, you know, continuity between our properties and properties behind the main gate. So before we get into these goals and initiatives, I kind of want to take this opportunity to step back and kind of define the Public Works Department. There's been some blurred lines in the past few years. My predecessor, Rusty, had a lot of different hats that he was wearing, had his hands in a lot of different things, and now with me having coming into this role, now having an assistant, we've now got a public safety director that will take over some of the things that I was kind of working on. Again, wanted to take this opportunity to define my department. So kind of what I came up with, the overarching role of the Public Works Department is to procure and implement resources to maintain, improve, and sustain town assets, infrastructure, and public services that are essential to the public health and welfare of the community. I know that's a big mouthful, but I feel like that encompasses kind of what the Public Works Department is about, you know, fitting into the structure of this municipality. So how is this achieved? We've got progressive planning initiatives. You know, what can we do to improve public services, public infrastructure, you know, things that might not be broken, but let's talk about how we can make that better. Community input and involvement. What are we hearing from the community? What are some ideas that they might have about how we can improve operations on the island? In-house personnel. How do we use our myself and now my assistant, how can we take care of some of these issues and grow as a department? And then contract management. Anything that we can't do in-house, we're going to go out, procure a contract, and then manage that contract to perform these services and deliverables. So defining this department continued. So how is this implemented into the municipal structure of the town? Identifying aspects and services that can be improved upon that positively impact the quality of life of residents. Also, we're going to continue to research new services and methods to current services that create more pleasant and enjoyable experiences. And we'll kind of get into a couple of those when we talk about some initiatives. Address issues that are expressed by residents. Is this an isolated incident that just needs attention immediately and then we're all done? Or are other residents being impacted by this same or similar issue? Is there a long-term solution to resolve this issue? Or is it, again, just kind of spot checking and taking care of it as it comes up? These are kind of how we address some of the issues, or matter of fact, all of the issues that are coming across through the Public Works Department. Potentially creating a platform to log issues as well as ideas from the community. This can be a tool that we use to track recurring issues. This can be a tool that we use to track recurring themes from people that have inputs. Again, going back to that community input and involvement, I think it'd be a good way to see how many times is this issue coming up, how many times is this idea coming up. Are we getting away from the community to improve upon different services and methods to current services. Working with the town's current and future vendors to deliver products and services that are consistent with the high expectations set by town staff. Yes, we do have high expectations up here, and it's driven by, you know, the community, the residents of the community that are here because they know Kiwa is a really special and unique place, and it's our job to maintain that kind of feeling that they got when they decided they wanted to make this their home.
You know, Brian, just to comment, the idea of a log, as simple as it sounds, I'll bet we could learn a lot if we looked back and knew what people were complaining about or asking about or suggesting over a period of time, that if we don't log it, we just lose that valuable history that just what is going on out there.
I think so too, and you know, I kind of had that idea. I was thinking about it. There, in my time that I've been here, as short as it's been, I can name a couple things off the top of my head that I feel like have recurred. But I couldn't tell you if it was from the same person or a different person,
Right,
just
yeah,
because
yeah.
of the
No, the
time
log
in
would be
between. But being able to log that, I think it's important to know, is it one person that's coming up with this issue, or are there multiple people that are coming up with the same issue? Because there is a big difference, both very important, but there is a difference if it's one person having a recurring issue, or if there's a lot of people that are impacted.
And just the geography on the island, you know, is it one area that's got a problem and it doesn't affect other areas? And what does that mean to us?
And you know, we have areas today that log things. You know, Julie logs calls, maybe about trash pickup. Jan logs problems related to the rentals.
Right.
And then we have this whole collection of logs, but we don't really do anything to consolidate the input from the community that would benefit what Brian's trying to do from an infrastructure standpoint.
We might look, this, not to overcomplicate it, Brian, but to your point, we might look at how we're logging in these various areas, including Brian's potentially. And if we logged it, especially in an electronic system, and we use the same pattern of logging, in other words, so the databases could be integrated, then you could have a consolidated log of stuff that's going on and see what that means.
And you code things, you know, it's a public works log item, it's a public safety log item.
Right.
And then it kind of goes to the right department head to address.
And everybody uses the same system to do it, then we've got a consolidated log. Here's what came in Brian's department, but here's what came in at the front desk. And you know, something to think about. Just if it were integrated, we'd learn a lot more.
And I would say part of it, and I know they're probably looking at some things, but we already have a system that allows that. It's called Citizen Serve, where everyone, if they were to utilize that software tool, it would all be integrated, and then we were able to spit out reports. Our evening code enforcement officers utilize that currently, so we currently have the software. It's called Citizen Serve, so it may be something that Brian may work with Jerome and her team to be able to make that so it's easy to be able to go in and log stuff. And I also believe we have tools that Stephanie set up where the community can also log in complaints. And I'm not sure, I don't think that goes into Citizen Serve right now. It does?
Citizen Serve has an option that as citizens can just complain, put the complaint in as name or anonymous or whatever, so we do have it.
So Citizen Serve, I'm only repeating it so that Scott can hear. So Citizen Serve, we do have that option. We have that option. We actually have that module right now that citizens can use.
Now,
So we have a
is used, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Citizen Serve is used by Kiwa also.
Kika has Citizen Serve as well as our ARB. The only problem is that right now we don't, the two modules don't share information. Not because we don't want to. That was one of the reasons why we purchased Citizen Serve. Right. It's more because they're a quasi-government body, nonprofit. We're a municipality. ARB is private. The concern, of course, is that if all three systems talk, it opens their systems up to FOIA. Sure. So that's why we have it separated, because we are a municipality. And Kika, I know Kika and ARB, they talk, but they're more of a private, they can.
Yeah.
And so that's why. But still, from a contractor standpoint, they know the systems. So if they go into one, they know how to use ours and vice versa.
Okay. So getting to John's point, so we have the system. Is everybody using it, or just Julie and
everyone from a staff standpoint, for the most part, is using it. I think Brian and their group, when they're looking at logging things, they were looking at something. I know before they talked about something more internal for staff, but maybe you can get more into detail in terms of if you're talking about Citizen Serve or if you're going to look at Citizen Serve. But I know Jan, code enforcement, they all use it. All of the departments use Citizen Serve in some way. I'm not sure if Julie uses it to log her complaint. She doesn't use that. Okay.
She has her own log, but we can start.
Let's look at it.
I think it's
Right.
Integrated is a lot more valuable than non-integrated.
I was just gonna say, to your point, there is a module on the site where we can take in complaints from residents
Yeah.
through a department, and then also in the app, that's the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I know
I'm sorry,
some
what did-
residents have
What
really
did
used the
Stephanie
app.
just say?
The app, so Stephanie was just saying that we have where on the of course, the Kiwa, the Town of Kiwa Island app, anyone can log in complaints and then it gets dispersed to the appropriate person, but also on our website, there's an area where residents can go and log complaints as well, and it's dispersed to the appropriate department.
Okay.
And you know, we have, not to get too involved in the semantics, you know, we're talking about logging complaints, we're really talking about not just complaints, but concerns.
Concerns.
You know, even if I had like Brian and I've talked about a concern that when you're going down the parkway, just before you come over the bridge, there's a whole series of palm bushes right there that really inhibit your ability to see an oncoming car that might be crossing the center line.
Yeah.
Well, that's not really a complaint. That's a concern that it needs to be addressed. So I think it's logging all of these things so that Brian has the ability to plan what we want the Public Works Department to be focusing on.
And then we also, a good tool, because some of the things too, if we receive it, because a lot of times residents don't understand the Mesa case, because if it's somewhere that is behind the gate and it's landscape, well, that's not the town. We can't go and just start trimming, but we can pass that information on to Kika.
Right.
If it's on Beach Walker, that's our road, we can do something about it. And of
that
course,
goes both ways. They
yeah.
can
And if
let
the
us
community,
know, too.
yeah, and if community association, if there's things that people have concerns about on Beach Walker or our portion of the parkway between the roundabout and the first gate, they'll let us know about it, because then we have to address
Right.
it.
And I do try in that effort, if somebody does come up with something that's behind the gate, you know, let them know whose responsibility it is, and I'd be happy to pass that on, because I think education on here is really important, because like Stephanie said, the town gets calls all day long for stuff that's Kika and vice versa. So I just think, you know, in responding to those inquiries, it's important to throw a little education out there as well.
Well, this is good. It sounds like citizen serve ought to be something you look at first as a way.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'd be more than happy. And I guess, you know, just I always thought it was more of kind of like for business licenses and code enforcement and tickets and that kind of thing. So I'd be interested to do a little exploratory trial on the capabilities of that software.
And Brian, I think we'll always be challenged with the community's misunderstanding of who really gets the issue, concern, complaint, what have you. But I think some definition, as you've prepared these slides, in terms of your scopes of responsibility. In other words, you know, from the roundabout to the first gate, you know, very explicitly, the beach, you know, calling those very beach walker, you know, drive. That'll just be helpful in terms of as you're developing your definition, you know, your explanation, et cetera, you know, just to put that geography in there. I think that.
Yes, sir.
That
I try to do that. Well, especially it's easier to learn what we have rather than what we don't have, because what we do have as far as infrastructure and roadways isn't too much compared to what's behind the gate. So.
Well, right, correct, but
to understand that.
you gotta understand that you got the hot spots,
Right.
you know, the Kestel Court, you know, maybe only one little street, but there's a lot of activity there, and it generates a lot of
And,
interest.
you've got the whole beach.
Yeah.
Even
We
the
do.
part that by line is behind the gate, it's still, the town's still responsible
Correct.
for the beach.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
to understand that infrastructure makeup is probably would be a good refresher for folks trying to navigate that maze of caves.
And John, to add to your comment, I agree, those bushes are a problem. They are. They bother me all the time.
And yeah, and I agree, you know, with regards to the things that Stephanie put out, we have what the town's infrastructure is, but I think what I'm hearing and what I agree is that just through continuously, when appropriate, pushing that stuff out so people understand, because through all the publications that she does in that Mesa case sheet, we state, you know, kind of like our infrastructure, but we have people moving in and out of this community constantly. We have visitors, so there's always a lot of opportunities, and so I'm sure Stephanie will continue and her team throughout the year trying to figure out ways to communicate.
Can't have too much communication.
But it's the thoughtful broader sense of government, whether it's the municipal government or the association government, or to be able to share information. It's one thing to educate the community. That's important. But it's really important that when the community just expresses that concern or that complaint or whatever, bam, it's getting to the right department head, whether it's here or whether it's, over this community association, that it's being acted upon.
Yeah,
That's what really, to me, that was what really becomes important.
I would say very pleased internally, and I don't know, of course, I've only been here 6 years, I believe, but internally between ARB, Kika, the resort, the town, we all, from a staffing level, we all have a great relationship. And so,
Yes,
as
you do.
Brian said,
Right.
if we receive something that's not necessarily the town, we will make sure to copy the person at Kika so the homeowner would know, and then we'll say, thank you for contacting the town. Unfortunately, this is not ours, but here's the person. And Kika does the same thing,
Right.
or the resort, or ARB. So from a town staff standpoint, we have a very good working dynamic. I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about the role of the public works assistant. So since the last retreat, I have doubled the size of the public works department. So I appreciate the approval to do that. So we've got a new position. Being a brand new position, this is a really great opportunity for me to not just define this position based on the roles and responsibilities of the department, but to also kind of cater that to the strengths and experiences that are brought on by this new employee, which you all know is Mike. So some things that he's really good at, information technology, really great at that, which is really important, as far as our communication, telecom systems, AV systems, everything like that. He speaks that language really well. So if it's not something that he can do in-house, he can have that conversation and be really just have the good communication and understanding with our tech company. He brought on some facility and grounds maintenance experience from some of his past jobs, and some contract management experience. These are all experiences, but to speak to his character as well, he's a go-getter, works hard, problem solver, very organizational. So integrating all this into kind of defining how we're gonna really break into this public works position. And that's kind of hard to read. So with this position filled, we're able to operate a lot more efficiently. The current vision that I have for this department is to kind of break out into two key functions, and that's going to be strategic planning and then operational management. Given our roles, and we've talked about this before this meeting, just to kind of make sure that we understand each other. I'll kind of be in a more of a strategic planning role, while he kind of takes care of the operational management. And now, being that we are a small department, smaller island, a lot of connectivity between residents and town staff, there's still going to be some overlapping going on there. But as we start to develop this department and as it will inherently grow, it's good to right now kind of establish these key functions and who's going to be in charge of these functions. So right now, this is where I kind of envision this going. And it's still going to take some ironing out some kinks as we grow, and he still is getting used to working in this municipality. But this is kind of the way I see this department
So
growing.
you want him to take the lead as we go forward on operational issues management?
Like day-to-day operations, right? You're, helping me go make runs out on the island, if it's delivering a trash can, investigating a call for whatever it may be.
Right.
Some stuff that keeps me back here, being able to nail down some of these bigger picture stuff. We've got a couple big RFPs that are going to be coming out this year, getting ready to work through those. and stepping back and looking at, you know, do we have any capital projects that we need to look into over the next couple of years, and really kind of taking a look at our greater infrastructure picture.
Brian, I think that a key word that I'd like for you to really embed in all of your planning and thinking and the like is really being proactive. As you have relationships with the different vendors, you know, whether it's landscaping management or trash removal or whatever it may be, to proactively make sure that they're doing, you know, and not to beat this horse, but proactively those bushes are trimmed before the concern or, God forbid, an accident occurs. To proactively make sure that things are being done. And I think that just becomes a real getting back again to those logs and, you know, becoming, and you are obviously familiar with the types of complaints that we do get. So familiar that you're anticipating, you know, in the middle of January of 2022, what we could expect, you know, with rainstorms coming up, you know, with spring breaks coming up, with you know, the summer onset, you know, proactively thinking about those types of things so that everything's ready. And I just think that's a key word that to keep in mind.
Absolutely, I agree fully with that.
You know, we used to always have, at the end of a project, we used to have post-mortem reviews.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure, use your spring break example. You know, when the spring break season is kind of completed, you know, it's quite, I think it would be a nice thing to have a session where we sit down and say, okay, what worked really well from an infrastructure standpoint, and what needed some help. You know, maybe one of the things we would have looked at last year is that needed help was the trash pickup on the beach at certain times of day or certain sections of the beach. Well, I think you addressed that. We changed the way that works. And so I think to go back and look retrospectively at the end of some of these cyclical things, what could we do better next time? And then it's not a day-to-day operational reaction.
It's not
actually,
reaction.
like you said, it's a forward-thinking, trying to prepare for them.
So yeah, I like that. Last year was the first year that I kind of reinstated. I got the idea from Trevor that works on the beach with the Chair and Umbrella Company. He said that Rusty used to always do these pre-summer kind of meetings with all the beach stakeholders. So last year we held one, and it was a really great opportunity for me to bring up like issues and things that I've noticed being on the beach in the summertime. How can we improve upon those? And they were able to kind of, you know, state
Right.
their observations and how can we do things more efficiently. But to do a follow-up, I think is a really good idea. And say, how do y'all think this summer went?
That's a great example.
How did our plans work?
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know, in my previous life, we also did a lot of postmortem reviews, and one of the things that you can do is you can actually create proactive checklists that says, okay, these are the lessons we learned last year, and then, you know, actually formalize those and memorialize them. And then next year, when spring break comes, you just whip out your piece of paper and say, okay, this is our plan going forward. And at the end of the spring break, you say, where did it break down? Where could it be improved?
I agree.
You don't
Thank
have
you
to
for that
brainstorm it
idea.
all the time.
Be excited to implement that. Okay, moving on. So getting into some of the initiatives that we have for this year, and there's nothing new that we haven't talked about publicly to town council and Ways and Means and everything, but just to highlight some of the things, the Beachwalker Drive Leisure Trail. So as you all know, over the past few years, the safety for bikes and peds has been a growing concern for residents. And what is a concern for residents is a concern for town staff. So yeah, about the safety that's for the users of the leisure trail adjacent to the roadway. So we've contracted with Kimley Horn, a third party, to conduct a study to show us kind of like what the activity is on this bike path and how can we improve the safety for not just bikes and peds but motorists as well. What we've come up with, we're going to put high visibility crosswalks at all the ingress egresses to the communities. So that's the 2 inlet coves, Riverview, and then also I believe the real estate office. Some traffic calming measures. We're going to install a speed table over there where the bike path crosses the Beachwalker Drive over to Duneside. Rerouting some portions of the bike path as to not be impacted by tree roots. Right now there's a lot of areas that are busted up by tree roots, so there's a pathway that we can reroute the bike path to get away from that being negatively impactful on the bike path, and then increase vegetative buffers where needed along the roadway. It's not only a perception of safety, but act as a safety buffer as well. So right now, as you all know, we are in a contract with True Luck Construction, and they have a CAD file of the bike path, and they're working on doing their design overlay right now. I was actually expecting for them to get back with me this week, but I'll have to give them a call after this meeting and see where we are, because we should be ready to do an on-site walkthrough looking at their design overlay versus what's out there, and just make sure that we've got everything apples to apples that we need. So I will be coming back with some updates to the council with that soon.
And these concerns on the bike path about pedestrian and cyclist safety apply also to the whole island.
They do.
The bike paths are a major concern. Bicycles in the road is a major concern. So I'm sure that Craig, working with Tony's people, will try and figure something out to improve that, because it's really important.
And so bringing up outside of Beachwalker Drive, I actually was talking with Mr. Moffitt the other day. We want to kind of do an audit, if you will, of our bike path along the parkway to see if there's any areas that need to get improved. Do we need to patch some areas? Do we need to address anything? Because up towards the real estate office, there were a couple areas that were impacted by tree roots that have since been cleaned up. But to do kind of a full bike path audit to make sure that we don't see anything currently, or that we don't foresee something happening.
And you already took care of crossing marks at Cacique.
We did.
Where the residents of Cacique had a question about their ability to come to the corner and enter the parkway, and that was just put in to try and help that a little. I don't know.
That's right. So we'll look at all these.
Proactive view.
Absolutely.
You look at these Arctique people that are on that bike path all the time, picking up litter and trimming and blowing and all of that. And Brian and I talked about was, it's a pleasant walk. Just get maybe Brian and Mike and me walk the whole thing and make some notes on where there's an opportunity to do some corrective things before they become a problem. Anticipating how things are going to grow, or a tree limb that is too low that whacks somebody in the face, and some of those kinds of things.
Yeah, I've got no reason to believe that we need to pull up the whole bike path and repave it.
No.
But this is just looking ahead, seeing if there are spot checks that we can take care of as we approach really awesome weather, spring, summertime.
Yeah. And that bike path to Freshfields gets a lot of use.
It does.
Absolutely.
It does.
Brian, were you going to at all discuss the intersection
Yes.
update? Okay.
Yes. Which there's not. Here it is. So I don't think we've brought anything formally to you all yet as far as kind of plans or anything, but so the intersection at Beachwalker Drive and the Kiwa Island Parkway, initially we thought we could get by with making that a part of the Beachwalker Drive Leisure Trail project, but as we looked further into it, this is going to need to be its own project. We need a lot more time to collect data, do some research, and come up with a plan that we think is sound, but it's not just us. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of key players that are going to need really great communication and really do a good job of working together if we want to get this really right the first time.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
In the beginning, did you say working because of the changes that may take place with those parcels?
So that did come on a little bit after the fact. I think
Right.
Mr. Bramard came to us about that after we had proposed this new leisure trail change.
Right.
So, but yes, that does play into what the ultimate plan or goal is for the intersection.
Because we
right
wouldn't
there.
want to do one thing and then have to change it altogether.
And that's
right.
why this is such a complex project. I mean, even though the
Yes, it
intersection
is.
is technically the town's infrastructure, it's impacted by Kiwa, where the
Sure.
gate is and how they operate the gate. It's impacted by the real estate office because of the access points to the real estate office. It's impacted certainly by the general store, by the bike path that currently goes across that intersection, by what the partners decide to build on that property adjacent to the general store, and then just the general growth and the amount of construction traffic and so forth. It's a huge project, and it involves every entity on the island, except possibly the resort in terms of direct involvement. But even the resort, it's a huge project, in my opinion.
It is.
And it's not one that, because of the ultimate expense of whatever we do there, it's not something you want to mess up before you get it done. I mean,
Right.
because you don't have time or money to do it twice.
Right. So to give a quick background, and again, I don't think any of this is brand new to anybody, but so this was kind of brought on by we were getting really significant backup
Right, in the
going
traffic.
onto the island in the morning. Backup that was from the gate to Cacique and even beyond that at some times, depending on the day. Some of these causes, we can speculate that the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody, inundated the island, we were seeing a lot more volume on the parkway, increased commercial and contractor activity on the island, and then just regular island-wide growth. We're getting a lot more people that are coming here, living here, visiting here every day. So this increased volume brought light to the stress that gets put on the parkway, specifically at that intersection. So let's see here. Right, so there's that significant backup also kind of leads to some decreased safety for pedestrians and cyclists wanting to cross different parts of that intersection.
Excuse me,
Yes, ma'am.
I have another question. Are there any plans for Kiwa to change the location of the guard shack?
This time, we're still in discussion.
So nothing
Nothing
immediate?
has been permanent. As you know, we looked at something temporary solution is to move the gate pass here to Town Hall, because the idea was we were trying to figure out a solution to be able to just essentially allow their security team to just, or to be able to allow cars to just go through, because what some of the concern, some of the issue is that people get into the wrong lane.
Right.
And then the security is talking to them instead of just telling them to move on. So one of the things that we did talk about was there a way to be able to essentially have the pass office here, we have some space, people can come if they have questions. Essentially, it would hopefully alleviate some of the pressure there at the intersection. Right now, that still is in discussion. I know now, since we have Craig Harris here, he's talking with Kika's new Director of Security, Carl Ritchie, and Tony Elder. So that is still, and I'm sure they've talked with Shannon and maybe the board. So that still is just something that is just in very, very, very preliminary discussions.
Thank you. And something that Stephanie mentioned was people cutting in, when they're in the wrong lane, or their residents don't want to wait and they cut in and cut across.
Rude drivers.
Right. So again, maybe for anyone that's listening in that isn't quite as familiar, there's the through lane for pass holders. That's what gets backed up because people don't want to be on the inside lane for people getting a pass, because they don't want to get stuck for 3 to 5 minutes while somebody gets a pass. So that's why this outside lane gets backed up so much, because it's a through lane. But then, as Stephanie said, you'll sometimes get somebody that, first time visitor that gets in the wrong lane, and then they have to stop and talk with security to get turned around, and then it gets exponentially more backed up. So that's kind of where that came from. And then again, people lane cutting in the middle of the intersection, illegal for one. Two,
Dangerous.
It's hard to see if somebody was crossing that intersection, whether it be a motorist, cyclist, or pedestrian. So this is a very necessary project for us to
Absolutely.
do. Yeah.
One thing I also want to remind you guys of is that Kiwa, they already have, believe Tony has approval. They're going to add that extension in terms of some sort of barrier along their portion right there in the front gate, so that people essentially get there, they won't have the ability. They can't cut over. So I know that's something that has been approved. I don't know when they plan on installing or doing that improvement, but I know that's something that has been approved.
So the lane you get to at the stop sign is the lane you're gonna go through?
Essentially, yes.
That's it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
No cutting over.
Those spikes. Just knock out their 4 tires.
Has there been any discussion about moving the gate from its present location further back up on the parkway, so that there's more room for traffic to go through that intersection before they have another hard stop right there at the gate as well?
We think so. Yeah, ultimately, that would be a very great solution. Unfortunately, we can't mandate that. It'll be up to the community association to want to do that.
That was what I was asking.
Right. If Dr. Parker said about moving the gate back,
Right.
potentially to right before Kiwa Beach Drive,
Right.
since there's no turns in between Beachwalker Drive and Kiwa
I
Beach
see.
Drive. So you've got another quarter mile of queuing that can happen before traffic starts to get backed up.
And that's just one of the complexities that gets introduced to this project, because, you could build a traffic circle, but you still only have 100 feet of
Right.
accumulation on one of the spurs.
Well, that's why the
So
traffic too.
It wouldn't be.
And then you get backed up at the gate, the
Yeah.
circle gets backed up, and no one's going anywhere.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you're not even coming off of Beachwalker Drive. at that
And
point.
even if they move them from from the stop sign over to the area right by the gate,
Yeah.
that gets backed up, so there's no room to move the cars.
Yes, right.
And then if you go back to the amount of activity that's on the island, and you figure that if there are 100 properties under construction, and on any given day there's 10 construction vehicles per property, there's 1,000 cars that are coming through there in the morning, and 1,000 cars trying to leave that are not resident related. They're just service vehicles. So it's a complex problem to solve.
That's right. So we kind of organically already kind of talked about some of this stuff, but just to go through it, main goal, two main goals: safety for pedestrians using those intersections up there to cross from bike path to bike path, and then alleviating vehicular traffic that's getting backed up both in the morning coming on the island and leaving the island in the afternoon.
I'm not sure we alleviate it, but maybe reduce it.
Alleviate, reduce, the goal's alleviation. If we can,
Yeah.
if we can get there, great.
Keep it moving.
Yeah. Get it moving a little
but
bit better.
reduction, I guess, yeah, thanks, Stephanie.
Reduce congestion is really the
Reduction.
Reduction.
not
Yeah.
unlike the road project out here. It's got to reduce congestion at the end of the day.
Right.
Otherwise,
To some degree, because we're, as you know, for one, on our section of the parkway, we have very limited real estate.
Right.
So the proposal you guys saw with regards to the various alternatives that we can do, it's not going to, I think, obviously it's going to reduce, it will reduce congestion, but there's going to be times, 4th of July, other times that we're just going to have backup.
That's
But
right.
the goal is to try to help reduce it some.
And then, planning for these holidays, they're not a surprise. We can have deputies helping direct traffic. We can, have maybe the community association helping us at those times. So, but that's a temporary and isolated solution. Again, so as Mr. Moffett kind of pointed out earlier, we've got a lot of players in this project. We've got the town, the community association, Kiwa Island Partners with different planned development that they've got back there, and potentially unplanned development. General store owner, the Kiwa Real Estate Office, and then you've got the communities along Beachwalker Drive and the county park. So a lot of moving parts to this one, and again, a lot of communication. So working together is absolutely important. We've held some preliminary workshops about this to kind of get input from the community and people that will be impacted. We were kind of all over the place. A lot of different opinions coming from a lot of different directions, depending on how you were going to be impacted. For instance, maybe the communities along Beachwalker Drive have a different opinion than perhaps we would like to see, or the general store would like to see. So compiling all of these different opinions, we will have more public workshops as we get further along with this. Right now, we're still in the research and data collecting stage with our third party. John Taylor and Dylan from Kimley Horn are working really diligently on collecting that and kind of still more in that planning phase. So we anticipate having some deliverables to come back to town council this year with kind of a really great sense of what direction we want to take. And again, all this is going to come down to who wants to play with us. So that's going to really kind of tell us what direction we can go in. Anything on the intersection before we go on? No, a lot to think about, I know.
Well, all that everything has been said. I mean, there's no disagreement. The complexity, the involvement of all the others. But again, proactively, realistically, it's going to happen. So we're in a hiatus right now where ain't bad. You can get down to Freshfields, you can just blow right through, and ain't bad. It's going to happen.
You're right.
Like maybe a month from now, 2 months from now, and then when it does happen, it's going to be continual. So I mean, we have to, we can't be. There's no reason to even suspect if it'll happen. It will, and then the traffic gets backed up, and people start complaining, and it's one thing to be inconvenienced, but if an EMS can't get on the island because of traffic backup or off the island or a fire truck or something like that there's harm being done to the community in any way, shape, or form, shame on us. So I just think be ready for it, and whether it's traffic control at the sites, we just should not be caught short.
And then if you do start doing something, the disruption that will be ongoing while we're addressing it is going to be horrendous.
Right.
So we need to plan for that as well.
Of all of the road problems that we've talked about these past couple of days, and we've talked about, this is the single biggest one.
Yes, it is.
No doubt.
This is the biggest one, getting on and off the island. And
Agreed.
I mean,
It'd be nice if there was multiple ways on and off, but there's not. So we have to take care of.
No, and I think the studies and data and all that type of thing, and whose property is where and all those types of things, it needs to all be worked out. But it's going to happen, and we just better be ready for it.
Be prepared.
As best we can.
Agreed. Okay, initiative number 3, I guess, solid waste. So the town's role is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. So we see that as solid waste being wrapped up into the health, safety, and welfare, which is why we manage that contract for all commercial and residential solid waste. Along with the residential solid waste, we've got supplemental disposal on Kestrel Court that we're all pretty familiar with, and then we've also got trash receptacles along the beach at all the public boardwalks. The latter two have posed some challenges for us, kind of historically, but a lot more in the past few years that this island has really grown and seen a lot of volume for different reasons. So let's talk about Kestrel Court first. Improper disposal has been an ongoing issue. However, in the past few years, we've seen a lot of increased stress at this site. I think it can be said that the pandemic and of course major holidays have been a catalyst for a misuse of this site. In an effort to mitigate kind of a more temporary solution, we improved the signage at the site to 4-foot by 4-foot signs that had rules, regs, violations, and alternative solutions for disposing of solid waste properly. We saw a decrease. Unfortunately, it came after a few citations were written, and you know, that coupled with the increased signage, and I think word of mouth, you know, helped improve the usage of the site, but it was never what I would call perfect by any means. We were still seeing some gross misuse of the site, and we've got increased capacity. We need to meet that with the growing demands of the island. So I don't know how well you can see it there, but basically this is the new design concept of what, well, not really concept, we're going to be implementing this. If you can tell, if I can orient you real quick, at the top of the drawing, that's Kestrel Court, the roadway, and then you can see those rectangles are going to be the equipment, 3 compactors, and then that one on the bottom is the big roll-off recycle container. So if you can tell, I think we've all been to that site, it's getting reoriented up against that substation. What that's going to do is improve how people access and leave that the dump site. It'll make it hopefully just a little bit more pleasant of an experience, easy to do. With the new equipment that we're going to be getting, they're going to be, well, so let me back up. That red dot is room for a potential extra unit, should we need it, that if this doesn't fit the demands that we need for the island. So that red dot one is an extra that can be added. The other 2 next to that, those are compactor units. And those compactor units are going to have a greater capacity than the existing compactor units at the site right now. And also with those units, there's not going to be the need for a catwalk, we'll call it. So there's no steps that you're going to have to go up and
That'll help.
Very good.
So, so hopefully that just kind of creates an easier, more pleasant experience for disposing of solid waste. We've gotten the approvals and everything that we need to get this rolling. The architect right now is still in the gathering of information phase from Carolina Waste to get all of the design specs on the equipment. So unfortunately, it's taking a little bit longer than we had anticipated. But once we get everything that we need, we're basically just pouring a concrete slab. So there's not a whole lot of construction or anything that needs to go along with this. So we're gonna pour the slab, it'll set, and then we'll have Carolina Waste come right back in with the equipment that we'll stage.
You're being kind. It's taken a lot longer than we had wanted. I think that as we look at projects in the future, we just have to look at architects that are able to get us results much, much quicker. It has just been, this is painstaking. I mean, the thoughts of looking at it at spring break and 4th of July, and we're still talking about this, is just, you know, I just hate to see the complaint pop up on my screen and I just cringe. You know, I mean, I know you do too, Brian, but I mean, it's, you know, it's like we haven't done anything. We have. We just get caught in that doggone architect review queue. It's, anyway. There got to be some firms out there that want to just do business. I mean, this stuff isn't.
It's not rocket science.
No.
No, it was a pretty straightforward project.
Yes, it was.
You know, so, right, we're a little bit disappointed, but trying to think.
You're a little bit. I'm a lot of bit.
I'll agree with that. I'm a lot disappointed too, but we're gonna get this done, and I've got confidence that this is gonna really positively impact positive usage of this site.
I do too.
When I drive up, will I be able to figure out what I'm supposed to do?
They'll be labeled, yes, sir, as they are now. You know, that one household trash cardboard, and then that big roll off is gonna be recycling. That'll be constant recycling.
What does the traffic flow look like? Am I driving in the front or am I parking in the back?
You're driving right up front, right up to it. I mean, so right now what you kind of have to do is drive down Kestrel Court, then kind of make a hard C turn into that lot. But this, you're going to be able to drive right up to it, back right out. You're not going to be impacting the road really so much. And the other reason for this design is that the trash trucks are going to be able to service these by driving right up to
that's good.
the units, and there's enough room for them to pull the unit out of the housing for them to toss it in the truck, so that they're not impeding traffic for the maintenance yard back there, for anyone coming in and out of that, and anyone else going down Kestrel Court.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to the beach solid waste collection. So the beach is arguably the town's largest asset and should therefore continually be monitored to maintain its natural beauty. Improper disposal and collection of waste can tarnish this beauty in an instant. We've all seen it out there. Throughout the peak season, there's a constant need to remove broken and unwanted items left on the beach, leaning against the receptacles, as well as response to complaints about the receptacles overflowing in the middle of the day. That's what we see typical summertime. So how do we prevent these calls from coming in? And if you will notice, I've got question marks behind all of these different bullet points because I don't know the right answer yet, but these are just a couple ideas. Pros and cons to all of them. Increase receptacles. Yep, sure, we could increase receptacles, but then I think that really impacts the look and feel on the island, along with different, you'll have increased costs from the vendor to service those receptacles. Increased number of pickups. Again, you'll have more pickups that could significantly reduce the amount of waste that's on the beach at any given time, but again, there's a cost that comes with that, and not to mention an extra truck route on the beach during the day in the middle of the summer. We can continue to spot check and conduct isolated response, so we know what the really heavy boardwalks are out there. We know what gets used a lot. Continue to go to those, check those throughout the day, and again, respond to isolated incidents and mitigate those in the middle of the day. And then, of course, there's always remove receptacles from the beach, which I know that there's a lot of that's
probably not a good plan.
Maybe not a good plan. I've heard both. And that's why it's on there. So I don't know, but these are kind of some immediate ideas about how we can really take care of this issue, because it is an issue. I mean, I think all of us have been out on the beach in the middle of the summer, and there's a mangled tent, aluminum tent that stayed out overnight and the wind destroyed it, and now it's up against the dunes. Same with broken beach chairs, umbrellas, all that kind of stuff. And things that are in perfectly good working condition, but someone's got a flight back home and can't take that with them, so it's gonna get left on the beach. So I will recycle those when I can, but not all of them.
I mean, the last one sounds idiotic, but if you had a sign that says you must remove all of your waste, take it with you. Maybe they just pile stuff up against the sign, probably.
Yeah,
I
think you'd have a pile of trash at the end of boardwalks.
Well,
Just like you have to clean up around Kestrel Court. We've got great signs there that say put it in the dumpster.
Removing receptacles from the beach doesn't necessarily mean there's no place to remove or to dispose waste. Yeah. It can be on the other side of the boardwalk.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't just do that. That would need coordination with the community association. Yeah. But again, just some ideas when planning ahead. Summer's right around the corner, so if there is something that we can do, I kind of am interested in doing an exploratory trial of pulling some in this off season and maybe see what kind of response we get. It wouldn't come without communication to the residents. Not all of them, but maybe just in some areas we can do an exploratory trial. See.
Have fewer, you mean?
Fewer.
There are some state parks that say take your trash with you.
Yeah.
There are.
Take your trash with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because we do want to. There is a convenience factor to it, for sure, and that's really nice. But does it come at the expense of the environment, with trash being blown into the dunes overnight? Because the way the operations work right now, throughout the summer, there's beach pickup every day of the week, through the peak season. Now, this is generally conducted in the morning before the beach gets really populated, so just easier, safer route for the truck to drive. And then, of course, it's tide dependent. So we increase number of pickups. Hard to do that at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on 4th of July. You can't even hardly walk down the beach, let alone get a truck down the beach.
Right.
So, again, just really kind of wanting to explore some of these different options because there is an issue that we need to get taken care of.
Have you talked to the beach patrol about this too?
So Beach Patrol's got a lot on their hands.
Well, I mean, maybe they have some ideas.
I think their only idea might be let us do it, but I wouldn't want to put that on them. They are very helpful. They'll let us know if there's a receptacle overflowing. They know to pick up the phone and call me and let me know so we can get it taken care of before a resident or guest would call up here. So it is very helpful, and of course, they don't need to do that, but we've got a great
I'm not
relationship
suggesting
with them.
at all that they would do it, but I do think maybe because they're there all the time, they might have ideas.
They might, and I'd love to talk to Rob and Saz about that and see if they know anything similar with the chair and umbrella company. Talk with Trevor. They're out there all day, every day during the summer.
I know one of the things, I believe the reason from what I recall when this came up about doing a test run with removing some of the receptacles off the beach is because I believe Folly Beach, what I was told, that they don't have either all or they have removed some.
They've got a couple down close to the pier.
And that might be, is that the county park area?
That is the county. Well, that's a lifeguarded area right there next to the pier. But they don't have receptacles all up and down the beach. And so thinking about it again too, from a convenience standpoint, if you think about all the boardwalks, basically 1 through 18 or 1 through 22, with the exception of possibly Eugenia, those are all regime boardwalks. So it's nothing to walk right up the boardwalk and you're already right there at your home. It's not like you need to take trash, carry it on your bike 2 miles back.
You just
to your residence.
repack your package.
So kind of thinking thinking along those lines as well, and that might be the area where we start with the trial, is right there where the regimes have their boardwalks. So I don't know. It'll be. I think all we can do is give it a trial run and kind of see how that works out. Otherwise, we're going to continue to kind of spot check and respond to phone calls as we've been doing.
The other issue that we have that we try to figure out how to resolve it, because people then go, this is with pet waste, people go and they just get a whole half of a box full. And so during the peak time, we get a lot of calls with the pet stations. It's just empty. And so we talked about, are there different types of pet holders that would restrict people from only taking one or two? So that's an issue too that we've been trying to wrestle with during peak season. It's just trying to keep those full. And again, Beach Patrol helps with monitoring that. So if they see one that we filled the day before and it's already empty, they'll let us know. But that's another challenge that we have, and maybe, trying to think of ways of being proactive. We've looked at different types of equipment to try to help alleviate that, but I'm not sure if we found anything.
I mean, unfortunately, all these companies that make these dog waste boxes, they want people, they want people to use to take a bag, not really difficult to take a bag. So, short of paying a quarter per bag out there,
I was thinking of that.
I was thinking
Charge.
nickel slot there.
So anyway, this is, as far as beach solid waste goes,
They don't want to wait, right?
that's kind of what we've been looking at throughout the summer.
Wow.
So I'll have some stuff to report back to you guys later.
Great.
At a later date. Okay, enough trash talk. Let's get into the look and feel of Kiwa Island. So this is another initiative that we have, and it really fits well within this department.
Hey, move it along a little bit, Brian.
I can go right through this. We already all know. So the parkway is it's the driveway onto the island. So it's really important that maintains that look and feel of the island, that you're going to get consistent behind the gate. So we're working with our maintenance contractors to do this naturally maintained look. We've got our Grow Native initiative, and continued trash pickup along the parkway to make sure that it stays really nice and pretty for residents and guests on the island.
And it does look better. I mean, they're doing a much better job.
Yes,
I think so too. And then similar with the parkway, we've got the municipal complex. As you all know, we've got a quick project that we're going to knock out before the springtime that's going to really enhance the beautification of here from some of the dead, dying plants that we've got on the complex, as well as mitigate some safety issues. So that we've got a meeting with them next week to do a walkthrough, nail everything down, get a timeline, and then they're going to break ground and be done by the end of March. So
Good.
That's what I've got. I will say that, as a resident who gets his trash picked up every week, I'm a Monday night for the trash, Tuesday for the recycling, and then Wednesday night you put out your yard stuff. They do a great job.
Yeah.
I couldn't be happier.
Good. That's good to hear.
That's
That's good
with
to
our
hear.
dumpster pickup. They're always there, and they're there the day they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Brian.
I think if we had a graph showing the level of satisfaction or just sheer pleasure of all of these things that are being done, it would be sky high. It's just, we see, but we do know of
The
things
exceptions.
that happen. And, and it's just a laudable goal to try to jump in front of them. And it's great. It's great. Okay, thank you
Thank you
very,
all.
very much. 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Yeah, we need a break.
I had a dog.
Nothing serious, Craig, we don't. We just need a break.
Oh, it's just 11:10.
I'm gonna tell you, listening to y'all, it sounds like y'all are in the tubercular ward at John Seeley Hospital in Texas.
Huh? No, nothing yet. Thank you. Nothing yet.
John yesterday talked about sort of the master plan.
John, did you see about Don? He
Yeah,
called
that's
me.
what I kind of alluded to yesterday. I got
Yeah.
one number, but I just want to double back to make sure it's accurate because senior living, they reduced their amount of things, so I just want to make sure I got that.
Okay, because yeah, he called me, I was here, and so I was like, we're doing it. But I did recall, and I looked at, but see, I have my freshman CD that I have, says draft on it, so I didn't want to quote that in there,
I
it's
can
only
send
100.
the draft right now. I'm not seeing the document right now, but I wanted to send you a snapshot of like the remaining entitlements.
Yeah, because that's one, because I was saying, one thing, he thinks that we can expand the number of hotel beds, and I was thinking, the draft I had only had 100 beds in there.
Hotel rooms, I think you can do residential.
Yeah, but so, okay, yeah. Do you have his email address? If not, I'll send him an email now and just say, John is working on it, and now copy you. And that way you'll have
That'd
it.
be good.
Okay.
And everybody has valuable input, not only of what they're doing, but on what the environmental conditions, economic conditions, social conditions, demand conditions will be. If we could find out a way to have all these different stakeholder input to this 5-year plan, that would be a game changer.
There are.
Doing well. How are you?
You have to tell me what this thing is on the desk here.
I have no idea what Pedestrians on
Well,
there.
it's there to hold the computer screen up.
Oh, I was like,
I know, but what is it?
just a destination.
Well, we thought at first it was Big Ben, but but the top is wrong.
Right.
So I guess she just has something that she found.
That's so funny.
The boarding.
So, some kids went out yesterday. You heard about that?
Mm-mm.
Kids went out yesterday to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Okay. You on Kiwa?
not on Kiwa, some on the Seabrook Island.
Oh.
But, Robin, France, he's
Mm-hmm.
so he dropped the kid off at the marsh. The kid was in the boat, that was controlling the boat. I guess he went over yesterday.
John, nice to meet you.
On the helmet?
Thanks for coming.
Take care.
So he said, command post, they're going, things came over, super albums, but I know how that goes, because it's 6 o'clock last night, and nobody had,
Yeah.
they was brothers, children.
Yeah.
Hopefully it pop out.
Yeah.
If not, show that current, make change. We said, come on outside, yeah, but
Oh.
they have not found anything on water outside.
Mhm.
They cover change, and they start
Kiwa.
to the water side.
Oh, okay.
But they had to find yesterday, it's in recovery stage
Yeah.
right now. So
Oh, that's too bad.
so that's what they are. They got
Yeah. Oh, okay, thanks.
Exactly which bushes you mean as you approach the bridge, because
Those palms and they're so thick.
and you can't see around them, and you're going, oh God, I need to slow down here because I can't see what's going on.
And you know, it's interesting. I looked at them again the other day. I look at it every
Yeah.
time I do it. But they're not technically on the road.
No, no.
They're actually off the road. But
Yeah.
because of the angle of the road coming
Yeah.
down like that,
You just can't
your
see
line
them.
of sight is right through the edge of them.
It's good to see Ed last night.
Oh,
So he doesn't know what his work schedule is, I guess. Oh.
every Thursday they send it out. And you know what's so funny is that now somebody else is doing the time.
Yeah.
He has to check every night to see if it's 9 or 8. Which he is, you know, it used to be used, it's the same schedule of daylight savings time. But it's just fun. No. It's pretty regular day, you know, we can count on like Tuesdays.
Yeah. Yeah. It would help.
I went with one of these little guys.
They're pretty good. I had one this morning. The fruit's good. You know, I was thinking when Dorota was making her presentation, she's been here 6 years, and probably 1 out of 6 years was a regular standard year. Because we had the 3 hurricanes, and then we had COVID.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
6 years ago.
Her level of knowledge, I would think she's been here a lot longer. Those auditors love Kiwa. because we always do everything well.
The one I had, maybe, that one, yeah, this and this.
We do now. So when are you moving?
Next summer. It's not gonna be built till we're finished
Next summer,
That's what we've been waiting.
this year.
yeah.
Yeah.
No word from your.
No, I have,
Last time though,
well,
when I
I've
was
been,
working with him, he was
it's
like,
really up to the
last
mayor
year,
and council what to do.
he was actually hunting, and where he goes hunting, he has no cell phone.
I don't think
So
so.
he emailed me.
Unless there's
and
some-
back to me, he's like, I'm so sorry. There's a lot of places, but where I hunt, there's no cell service. So, it's hunting season, so maybe he's hunting.
So anyhow,
Well, we can only hope, because you knew Thursday was the day.
Yeah. And him and his partner, we're still live streaming.
Okie dokie. Craig, you are up.
Rookies up.
And you're the man between lunch and,
oh, don't
Take as
say
much time.
that, this is too important.
I know. At least it's not 4 o'clock, it's gonna be the man between
And
having
drinks.
drinks and wine
It was 4
time.
o'clock, he'd be here by himself.
Oh, this fruit is so good. I should have been having this instead of dessert.
Oh, he left.
The rookies up.
The rookies up.
Feel like the draft.
Nah,
It was just the rookies. Those are the clothes right there. Okay. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be here.
Gotta talk in the mic, yeah.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
All right.
Right now.
Or just lift it up, yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. Met a great group to work with. Can't wait to continue what we already started. So, but today I'm gonna talk about public safety and some strategic goals for 2022. So, although I'm just starting, but I picked up a lot of things. So, the first goal was building the philosophical underpinnings as the new public safety director, which includes the roles and responsibility. The next, increase efficient communication among all security sectors and building on human capital, not just on Kiwa Island, everything surrounding Kiwa Island in the Low Country. And the third goal is monitor and assess all contracts related to public safety and code enforcement for the town of Kiwa Island. So when I look at the philosophical underpinning, is the background. It's so unique that over 40 years ago, this town has been doing research on developing this position. You guys went through several research entities over 40 years ago to today come up with this position. And what is so unique about it is that the town decided over 40 years ago to enhance the Uniform Act to regulate traffic into a private entity. So I'm saying all this to say that you guys are starting a good background to create a future department of public safety in all other entities. If you look at the third, the last recommendation that was always made in each one of these research, recommendation was made to design a position to centralize, and that's very important because most of my topics today is going to talk about centralizing. But all the recommendation, even back from the very first research, talked about centralizing and coordinating all aspects of public safety services on this island to meet both current and future needs. And I thought that was very unique for this government to actually recognize that to get this thing started. So, roles and responsibilities. So, in order to really fine tune this position, the big thing is getting the awareness of the roles and responsibilities. And the first roles of responsibility is assume full management and responsibility for all public safety department services and activities, that including code enforcement, any criminal activities, special events, but that includes everything that deals with the public safety. Work in a professional setting with multiple jurisdictions, such as the fire department, emergency medical response team, medical response unit, county sheriff office, private security components, federal, state, private organizations, and stakeholders. Assumes the town emergency management, roles during emergency or special events. I know you guys had special, each one of you guys had like special components you have to do, so you don't have to worry about that no more. I'm here. So, but the good thing about it is going back to that centralized unit, this is going to help the tasks to be more systematic than what we experienced in the past. And the last thing is act as an advocate to St. John's Fire Department, Charleston County EMS, Beach Patrol, Kiwa Golf Resort, and Kika. And the good thing, we've already started a great relationship with those entities. Here you guys talk about a lot about the speeding issues and response times to medical calls, and we've already started working on some projects, just to let you know, especially with the traffic. I know it's upcoming, a couple more months, we'll be dealing with the in season of Kiwa Island. So myself and Kika, we've already looking at some different strategies to try to address the traffic flow issues on Kiwa Island. Second goal, as I stated, is to increase our communication among security sectors and stakeholders. This is where I'm talking about the centralized system. Engaging on and off the island, collaboration to capitalize on partnerships program with all public safety domains. Increase and strengthen our communication flow among Kiwa community, safety components, and town officials. Engage in cross-divisional committees, task force, advisory committees, and I'm going to explain everything. Identify, utilize technology to increase transparency and strengthen communication ability to provide information to the community. Ensure effective and efficient systems that are utilized for crisis management and dispatch operation. Now, all that means we are trying to establish a centralized flow when things happen not just on Kiwa Island. If things happen outside Kiwa Island that may affect our community, the goal is to make sure that everyone is aware of it, because whatever impact us, impact our community. So by utilizing the technology and the networking, as we say, gaining our human capital, we've established getting those real-time information so that the community will have access and knowledge of what's going on. Not just in Kiwa, outside of Kiwa. Work in collaboration with Ms. Stephanie, our communication specialist, doing an outstanding job. We're putting a lot of things together so we can have things centralized so that we can keep everybody informed. We all know things take a little time, a little step, but we're going to get there. Ensure effective communication with our crisis management and dispatch operation. So, again, when you dial 911, there's a prompt that they have to go through, right? There's a series of questions that they have to go through. So when myself and Elder talked about it, usually when people call the gate, they don't realize they just took 4 minutes off that time.
Right.
Because the prompt questionnaire that they have to go to takes pretty much about 2 to 3 minutes. It is very time consuming. but they try to do the best so that they can get the information out to the right authority. It can be medical, it can be the police. So we're working to Elder, working a good system. He have revamped that system to get the community to call 911. And what they do is they will have the front gate personnel to also call just to make sure. So that's, you know, that's something that's working. Again, it's just, this is a start, but it's working. But again, it's a good collaboration of trying to get that one entity under one umbrella so that we all can be informed, be on the same page. When it comes to the crisis of it, we're in the process of meeting up, and we're going to start working on a stand-up procedure. We need a stand-up procedure so everybody knows who's on first, second, or third base. There won't be a guess. You know who to call, but we'll all be informed what's going on. Whether we'll be involved or not, we will know what's going on so the information can be assimilated to the right authority individuals. So if there's someone's coming in town, you will know.
So the motivation will be to try to encourage residents to call.
On what to do when this happens, I think that's going to help as well. So there'll be a lot of awareness that's going to be coming up on the web page under public safety. So our community will know exactly how to respond, who to call when these things happen. From anything from simple bike theft to any unusual things in the area. They'll know exactly who to call.
Great.
Monitor, assess all contracts related to public safety for town of Kiwa. Code enforcement renew, Charleston County Sheriff Office on duty and as well off-duty assignments, emergency management recovery and assessment for removal, Charleston County Emergency Medical Service. Most important one on all those things are important on this page here, but the most important one I want to make sure I bring up right now is the fact that as we were here today, we're in the process of finalizing the medical service on the island. We're in that process. Once we get a date to get the work started, it would take probably a month or less. And just got information back from Eric Watson. He said once we get everything, I guess, repaired, it should take less than 30 days to get the truck and some workers on the island.
And they'll be stationed
They'll be stationed on the island.
And is it going to be a regular ambulance that looks like a box on wheels?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to be very specific in your descriptions of vehicles.
He said as long as they don't get any impact from COVID, but they'll have someone here within 30 days.
Thank you.
So this is all part of what Eric had described to us, Stephanie, some time ago in terms of his increased funding and support that he received from the county. We're a month away from having that come to fruition.
Yes, it's something that through Ms. Conley with the Public Safety Committee, this all started with Station 10 right behind us, them staffing it up. And then from there, we had having a permanent EMS facility on the island. They prefer to have their own separate standalone facility, but there's just no land available for them to buy. So they were able to negotiate some sort of intergovernment agreement with St. John's Fire Department, and so they're going to have a truck there as well as personnel there.
Great, wonderful.
That'll be great.
That's progress. Ooh.
It sounds like progress, but it's taken a long time.
I know. Progress sometimes
It's
does take
taken a
long.
long time.
About 6 years. Because this approach was advocated by the Public Safety Committee about 6 years ago when I was serving on it.
So,
They didn't get it though, did they?
No, we did not. But now we are.
And we're gonna have it. We're gonna get it.
Well, I think part of it, a lot of it goes to the credit, Eric and these folks from the
Yes.
county that I think were
Yeah.
able to impress the county commissioners that they needed money.
Oh, definitely. It's
Yeah.
not a singular person
Yeah,
that's
I mean-
responsible.
So I think
No.
the county, once again, was way behind in terms of their support behind all of this.
Yeah, and I would say, with regards to the creation of the Public Safety Department or remodification of it, and Deputy County Administrator Watson listening to us and really pushing and understanding, and since he was, I think, second in charge with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, so he helped draft the permanent duty contract. He had came in understanding the needs of Kiwa, so he was
Yeah.
really
Very helpful.
very supportive
And
in
when
getting
they-
this done.
And when they applied for their budget, they had 84 EMS openings. And that was what got funded from the county, so.
So again, in Charleston County Sheriff Office. So again, another collaboration with colleagues from the Sheriff Office for them to understand our needs, and they're willing to help increase the awareness. Want it to be more visible, and I expressed that throughout the week about having the deputies to be a little more visible than what normally they were doing. We've already established the fact that we have some speeders inside the area, whatever. So they're using their vision and working with Elder. We are in the process of probably doing more warning tickets before we have to take it anything drastic. So, but that's in the upcoming days. So you're gonna see some high visibility the guys we already have out there.
Good.
Okay.
Could you speak in the mic a little bit more?
Okay. That's better.
Yeah, is
It
it on?
comes down if you want.
That's better.
Tap it. Is it on? Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Scott's having a hard time hearing you a little bit.
Okay.
There you go. Oh,
Is that
great.
better?
That's better.
Is that
That's
better,
better.
Scott?
That's better.
That is much, much better.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So here's my initiatives. Develop the development of the Director of Public Safety roles and responsibilities. Continue to increase response time to emergency calls. Create a standard of procedure with the collaboration of all security and safety components of Kiwa Island. Increase shared situational awareness with local and operational area partners such as EMS, police, fire, and federal agencies through joint training. So with that said, we're going to also establish some tabletop exercise for emergency awareness events and special events, critical events. We're going to establish some tabletop exercise so we can be aware of and how to do certain things. And everybody know their role. So any questions on that?
Just, in your last bullet, Craig, the beach patrol just is an integral part.
Yes.
Yeah.
They will be involved in our
Sure.
training as well.
They among all of them have really taken the initiative and have just elevated their
Yeah.
Absolutely.
capacities and
They have, and Rob is aware of it. He will be a part of the
sure.
creating the SOP
Yeah.
because of all the experience that those guys have been through. So he will be involved in that because a lot of it deals with the medical response call. So
You might, I don't know if you're aware or not, but they're all DHEC certified now.
correct.
So that's a big plus.
And that's going to help out when we create the standard of procedure.
Right.
So here's the director's challenges, and I use the SWOT model, but the strength is the town providing a centralized safety security role for future development. By creating these standard operation procedures and this collaboration, it's going to strengthen the town for future development under public safety. Okay, weakness is not a bad thing, but it's the organizational paradigm, the change.
Fair assessment.
Certain things need to be added, certain things need to be deleted. The status quo is gone. Now it's time to catch up to today's event. So, that's going to be some some time, but we'll have no problem with that. Our opportunity to promote organizational excellence for professional growth and sustainable public safety program. This is the beginning, and the great thing about it, something that Kiwa was asking for a long time. So this is going to help promote our professional growth to add on to that program. The threat changes surrounding Kiwa Island and new development. As what I see right now, that is a threat, because the growth of not just Kiwa Island, but the growth of Johns Island and the new development that's centered around Johns Island, we have to be prepared. And going back, that's the whole purpose of generating a standard operation book. That's the whole purpose of generating that role of the Director of Public Safety to add on if need be, because the challenge is coming. And with the development and the opening of the roads, hopefully 526, we're going to see things that probably we've never seen before.
You know,
Right.
you're so right on that. Just last week, my wife and I have been coming down here for 30 years. We've had a house down here for 20. Just last week, for the very first time, we had a discussion on whether or not we should consider putting a security system on our house.
Oh.
And it's because of, not because we're a high crime district, but there's all kinds of things going on that's just going to change the dynamic.
It's going to change it. Right. Right.
The other thing I would add that I think I'm sure you're aware of, and I know public safety is, but as we face during hurricane season the threat of a significant storm each time, evacuation procedures, they've been developed and they've been worked on, and we have them, but we're still got two-lane roads, and now they're littered with housing developments. Getting in and out of here, getting people safely off the island, making sure that people understand staying on the island is not a good idea during a storm. A lot of people just say, well, I'm going to just stay. Well, that's not a great idea. We got to educate them, but we got to look at how long it's going to take us to get off the island, because it's going to be much worse in the future than it has been in the past. So you'll be challenged by all that.
Well, having these safety plans on paper and going through the training, I think the challenges is needed so we can prepare for it and do better.
Yeah.
So
I have a question. Do you know if, with regards to, because I just don't know how this works, with the new MUSC ER facility coming online in next couple years, do they typically have their own security, or how does that work for that type of facility?
Yeah, they have their own private security, and they confined within the building. They're very strict with that. Anything they do defined within the building. And,
or within the footprint of their site?
Well, things may change on this end, but I can tell you from just experience, everything from within the building.
Okay.
Very rare that they'll come out that building to handle things. Usually they work, have some type of contract with the sheriff, who are, the agency to police the outside area.
Okay.
But I'm familiar with the director over there, and I'm pretty sure I'll have a sit down talk to try to collaborate a better best practice policing between here and
The main facility downtown?
well, when they over here, and when they come over here, we'll have a good understanding.
Greg, are their officers armed?
Several of them, yes. Some are armed and some are not. Yes.
So they do have.
Yes. So it's kind of similar to what we have as far as Kika goes and what Seabrook has, but they're armed security guard. They actually are certified through the state, so they go through training just like a regular police officer.
In their ER downtown, I've never been to the MUSC ER. They have metal detectors and things like that to get into ER?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Greg, can you real briefly flesh out a little bit more about this organizational paradigm that you identify as a weakness? And by that, I mean, where do you see the weaknesses that are right now between, let's say, the town and not picking on anybody in particular, but say the Charleston County Sheriff's Department, and how do you anticipate strengthening or changing that paradigm?
It's more of this, like when I say status quo with the organizational paradigm, things that Kiwa Island, Kika, even the resort normally do from past times, and now everybody's sharing information together versus keeping it to themselves. And that's what I'm coming from when I say organizational paradigm. It's time for a change, and sometimes, as we know, when we're used to something, it takes us a little while to change. We're not adapt that fast to make those changes, so that's why I use that as a weakness.
Okay.
But I do see that as a problem if we do not change a centralized communication flow.
Right.
Do you see, I don't know, you may talk about this in your other slides. This is it? Is this your last slide?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so one of the things in terms of, I don't know if it's a weakness, it could be an opportunity, the organizational paradigm potential shift could be the concern or fact with regards to our contracts with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, permanent and off-duty deputy contract, and with the growth, with you and I talked about this, and I know we'll have
Many talks.
further conversations with regards to this. But one of the things that we had talked about through the Public Safety Committee that Ms. Conley looked at is, do we have to assess, which we should, our current model that we use, which is a hybrid model. You guys may recall the town about 3 years or so ago, no, maybe 4 years ago, but maybe 3 years or 4 years ago, we essentially looked at our current model and said something is not working because we realized we were not getting the level of patrol or deputies per our contract. So then we essentially, through the Public Safety Committee, we went and looked at other organizations in terms of how they're doing policing, Hilton Head, Valley Beach, IOP, to be specific. And ultimately what we decided was that we wanted a hybrid model, which was what Hilton had. Theirs wasn't hybrid, but they had all permanent deputies. So then we did the hybrid model where we were told at the time that we were having problems filling the first shift. So then we have this hybrid model where we have permanent deputies assigned to us from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then we have the second and third shift filled in with off-duty deputies. Under Ms. Conley's direction, we then assessed that contract. Maybe in the second or third year we felt like it was, well, actually the second year we felt like we didn't have enough time under our belt to really determine if that model worked or not. So we said we'll give it some more time. So now we're here where we need to really, we have a couple years of this model under our belt. We're able to determine from an off-duty deputy standpoint, what is the coverage for second and third shift. I think now we realize through the direction of Craig, our first shift, where we may have been having some problems filling that, which I wasn't aware, but I guess we are having a little bit of trouble at times filling that. But they'll look at and assess if that model still works for us. And maybe it does right now. But as we continue to grow and develop as an island, we might look at the fact that we either need to go to more permanent deputies in all the shifts, or do some sort of combination of the town having some sort of deputy or police service with still support from the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, where we may just do first shift from the town and then the county to second, third. Whatever that looks like in terms of organizational paradigm shift, Scott, I think that could fit there or can fit in the opportunity, but I think we have to be mindful. And also, the Sheriff's Office is having, I think, a harder and harder time getting deputies and filling shifts. So we don't know if this current relationship we have with the Sheriff's Office, we're going to always have Sheriff's service, right? Because we're part of the county. We're essentially paying for enhanced services. we're not sure if they're going to be able to provide that level of service to us and for how long. And those are some of the things that he'll be looking at.
I think that's a really important point, especially, I don't know if you feel this way. This year, I feel like there are many events that have occurred that we haven't had to deal with before, whether it's the bike thefts or other legal issues that the sheriffs have been involved in. And the greater this expansion of Kiwa gets, the more important public safety is from individual protection point.
Yeah.
And I think we constantly, until we come to a settling point, have to evaluate this. So I'm really glad that we have a public safety director to help us with this.
I have to say, to me, one of the best parts of having you here, having this position filled, and is this coordinating effort, you know, and I don't think it hurts to have, you know, your counterpart at Kika, somebody that you've worked with, which makes that coordinating probably a little bit easier to get started anyway.
Yes.
And I think that's a huge benefit to the island as a whole.
Yes. Yes.
You know, Craig, and getting to link some of these points together, paradigm is an appropriate word, but I would even say one of the biggest weaknesses we have is the reliance that we have on county services, EMS, fire, and sheriff's office. And just like we talked about a few minutes ago, it did take 6 years. It did take a long time to finally get the, you know, we along with others, but, you know,
Yes, sir.
getting sufficient budget support that they improve their hiring, their wage rates and things like that. This county is going to be inundated with demand. You know, these thousands of homes that are being built and thousands of people, they're going to want, you know,
Service.
fire,
Right.
EMS, and the county's ability to be able to respond is going to be one thing, and where we, being at the far end of the county, are going to be able to demonstrate our needs. I don't know, they're going to be passing up some multi-thousand subdivisions out the road here before they were able to respond to us. So I think all of that, to me, is the weakness that we have. It's the reliance on those county services, and our opportunities, like you said, you know, we're just going to have to be ready to step in some way, shape, or form.
Yes, sir.
You know, other than fire, which is really St. John's, but you know, it's the county that's the EMS and the sheriff's office. So I don't know. You're right, Stephanie. I mean, you know, I don't know. 5 years from now,
Who knows?
things may be markedly different. So.
Yes.
You know, I realize that the sheriff has to go past all these thousands of homes, but where I'm being disappointed is that we're paying a substantial amount of money for enhanced sheriff services, and yet the sheriff's department is not visible at all right now. I just don't see them, period. And so I question, you know, that's a weakness to me. Is it, what oversight do we have in terms of, you know, helping them provide the service for which we're paying for, above and beyond our tax money?
Okay.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to somewhat try to answer your question, Scott, and Craig, you can fill in the blanks. You're right. So because of the fact that that's one of the things that we hear, and Craig even, you know, said that he's been driving the island to get to try to learn the island, and he's not even seeing deputies. So he's, you know, he's requiring now for them to check in with him every morning. So we at least the permanent ones, so we know who's working.
That's good.
Very good. And I believe, I don't know if there's anything else that you're
Well,
going to
I
try
also,
to put in place.
yeah, but not only that, I have that. I had the county give me their schedules for the whole year. So now that the gate have the schedule, as well as the resort have their yearly schedule. In addition to those that work part-time after hours, we have their schedule as well and contact number. So if something happens, they know who to call and they know who's actually working. So if there's somebody that's not calling me, at least let me know they're here. I usually let the county know I haven't heard from this person, but they've been very helpful by getting things done right away when I reach out to them. So, like I said, it's a beginning process since I got here. I think meeting with county face to face once a week kind of helped out, and I'm going to continue to meet with them until I get more people to say that they see these guys patrolling the area.
Also, like we told the people, the county EMS, we have a willingness to provide funds. We have a willingness, we have a budget line item to
Yes,
provide
sir.
funds. But if they don't have the officers themselves just to be able to cover their shifts, we're not paying anybody.
Right.
Right.
But that doesn't help anything.
Right.
We want the shifts covered.
Yeah.
We want their presence on the island. We want them out on the roadway system. So that's the dilemma.
And you're starting to inspect what we expect, which always
That's a good
improves
point.
performance.
Right.
Once somebody knows that they're being held accountable, or somebody's looking at them, then all of a sudden things get better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
I don't argue that their presence is not really felt.
Right.
However, with two people on one island, it's very hard to have them everywhere for everyone to see. I usually see them when there's an incident or patrolling.
Right.
But
Well, like I told the lieutenant that's kind of coordinating this, that's the whole purpose of them coming to
Right.
see. Even if I'm not there, you have code enforcement, Ms. Chillison. We can at least tell them what our complaints you guys was talking about earlier. Where are these complaints going at? Hey, we got speeders in this area. I need you visible in this area, in these areas. They're not going to know exactly where to be if we don't know what the complaints are.
right,
So,
good point.
So if we know like you said, when we know what the expectation of the problem, then we know where to put them so they can be seen more than what they're doing right now.
Well, one of the tools that will help them undoubtedly then is Kika is getting ready to put up some of those, your speed is digital displays around
Yes.
the island. And they can identify specific areas where, there are traffic issues.
Yes, yes. That's one of the things we talked about at our meeting with Tony and Richie.
Okay.
We are glad you're here.
Welcome aboard.
Yes,
Glad you're
right.
here.
I made it.
Are you sure you want to come here?
There's a lot of work.
Is that it, Craig?
Oh, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I've been making notes, and let me kind of go through what I've collected in terms of, I don't know, next steps or
Yeah.
conclusions or whatever. And please then add to it as we try to make it as comprehensive as we can. Stephanie and John, working with representatives from the community to develop the specific languages for section 1279 and 12159. So that's a targeted activity, and the date is, right now, is the February 8th workshop. An approach, ordinance versus a policy, language for the 15 proposed changes. I think what's kind of critical with all of that stuff is that, both Stephanie's, is as language is developed between now and February 8th, how to disseminate that language to the community. I think the high level desire, community involvement, improved time. I think there seemed to be clearly common agreement earlier this week. But for the community to be able to know, well, this was 30 days, now it's going to be 90 days, or this was 1 and now it's going to be 4, try to get some tangible indication in terms of how things are going to be better, or how, what they're going to be. So I think that'll be important as between now and February 8th to take the language and to be able to have some level of specificity to be able to then start saying to the community, is that good? Are you satisfied? Or, whatever. So that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Not necessarily from this 3 days, but John leading this ad hoc group of community members and develop language specific to disturb. I have every expectation it's going to be so successful. And that could be a good model as we look at some of these other issues, you know, ad hoc groups to be able to work on it. So anyway, it was part of the council meeting, but it's more the process than it is. Anyway, okay. Dan and John continuing to work and expand the broad community. The broad community, you know, Johns Island, Wadmalaw, Seabrook, Charleston Collegiate, these different subdivisions to get their support for the Sea Islands Way solution to the road development plan. I think it's a laudable objective. John working on the comprehensive plan review. In so many ways that, especially now in 2022, since you're going to be doing the revision, that brings together so much of what we've talked about. So many different things, so many different areas. And the possible approach to consider, you know, how to develop dialogue with community members, not only individual residents, specifically, how do residents feel about this whole issue of the possible annexation from Freshfields to the first gate? There's Cacique, which is a developed site. There's the Goodwin property, which is an undeveloped site. How does the community feel about that? How would the community feel? And not that we can decide these things, but we could possibly influence these things if the residents of Cacique wanted to be moved in or wanted to be annexed into the town. If you're a resident of Kiwa proper, per se, is that good? Would you welcome that? That could be those are the things that could be explored. The Goodwin family, years ago, we had some strategic planning sessions where we met with the Goodwin, well, we met with Mr. Goodwin. It has been a long, long time ago. I don't know how many years, but it's been a long time. But maybe try to get an audience, try to get some opportunity to meet with them. What are their plans? And to hear from our residents, what would they consider to be a desirable use of those 500 acres? I don't know. These are things to explore. These are things to think about. But again, working in the context of the comprehensive plan, I think they're worth probing questions. Should we try to get meetings or not? You know, just now's the time to be able to incorporate those into this plan. Similarly, and Dan mentioned it yesterday, taking the initiative and meeting with Mark Primar on this proposed Beachwalker plan development. For us to be proactive, and I mean, Mark did a great job. He laid the foundation for the discussion at a very fundamental level. He talked about history, you know, all those types of things. But maybe we should be taking a more of an active issue and saying, this is what we think you should build there. The one gentleman,
Brad built.
Pardon me?
Brad built.
Oh, Brad.
From Riverview.
Yeah, he said, you know, if it could be just like Riverview, wouldn't that? Well, that was his perspective. Maybe it's an excellent perspective. But Mark heard it, but maybe we should become more active in terms of influencing that. Because we ultimately have to approve the development agreement. I thought Jim's points about his 2022 objectives, as he said, similar to the past, and they are, but maintaining this balanced environment at a time when we have so much growth, so many people, so much activity, it just exacerbates the ability to do that. I mean, to keep, you know, the natural environment that we all love so dearly. So, you know, I think that's going to continue to be a lot of fight. The root of your presentation was excellent on that 5 to 7 year financial plan. I think it's a great idea. You know, the whole litany of what ifs. You know, what if? What if we have to have want to or have to, but we desire to have a police force. You know, we desire to really improve something, you know, expand our beach patrol to have them become quasi or become the EMS service or whatever. But there's a lot of what ifs when we start looking at 5 to 7 years down the road. Wow, I mean, all kinds of things could change.
That's so true.
And so I think that putting those what ifs into a 5 to 7 year financial plan, which will then become part, you know, as the financial plan is married to the comp plan, I think will be really, and I mentioned, you know, EMS coverage, security coverage, ARB, whatever. Well, Brian, you emphasized so clearly this complex problem at the critical intersection. And I think we just have to continue to support you and your efforts and working with everybody. That problem is not going to go away. It just is not going to go away. And Craig, we just talked about, you know, the organizational paradigm. So much of it centers around, again, the things that you highlighted. So those were just some of the notes and then all of this is communication. You know, all of this is communication. How best to communicate? How best the people they clearly read. They clearly watch the computer. They clearly watch when things pop up in their computer that they read. I mean, that I think is we know that happens. I'm not sure that they're reading everything that we send them. I wish they, you know, but they're reading some things. And I think that's the whole social network that all of society is dealing with. But which is fine, which is appropriate, you know, but there are things that we really want people to walk away with, more than just communicating with them, but educating them so that they have an understanding. So we don't have an answer for that one yet, but that's Stephanie's going to be something to continue to work for. So please jump in. But those were just some of the things that I took from that. Stephanie, you jump in too.
I'll mention just a couple of things. I think two things sort of broadly. One is, and you've hit on it, we would benefit from being more proactive rather than reactive to a lot of things, whether it's preparing for a storm, worrying about financial disruptions that could cause problems. The more we can be proactive and anticipate, the better off we're going to be, which I think is critical. On the communication side, I think we have an interesting challenge going forward. And Steph, I know we're going to hear from you in a few days or a week or however long it takes you to sort of get back to being normal, whatever normal is. I know that every time I go to a doctor's office or get off an airplane or leave a restaurant, I get a survey. And let me tell you, I don't answer any of them anymore because it is overload. It's crazy. So figuring out how to really communicate, as the mayor says, with our people, both the permanent residents and the temporary residents, the people who have a home but don't live here, you know, that's a real challenge that we got to figure out, because if we're not communicating, then they don't think we're doing our job and we're not learning from them, you know. And I think it's a tough one. I don't know the answers to it, but we need to figure it out. I think some of the things, Rhoda, you talked about a contingency fund, I think those are really smart. You know, that's like a big insurance policy that we can have. And today we have the resources to be able to do it. you know, in 5 or 10 years, we may not have the resources, so let's build the fund now. So I think the comp plan, we've all got to help. It is the perfect opportunity to ask the Goodwin interests, where are you guys going in the next 5 years with this? Can we help? Does it fit with within what we think is the island? I think it's been a very interesting couple of days. We've learned a lot. We've got a long list of challenges, but I think this idea of communication is a challenge overall, and proactivity is going to be. But if we take those two themes on and work on them, I think we could be great. And you know what? We all get along. We don't agree, but we get along.
So far.
That's good too.
Mary Ann, comments?
I think that one of the key things is proactivity versus reaction. And so many times for us, we've had to react to plans that come to us for approval or extensions or exceptions. And I really like the idea that we're going to do that. I think in these 3 days, it has been extremely helpful to understand what each person is doing. And I always say the quality of people that we have working here is really high. And, you know, I appreciate all that everybody does, and we don't always realize what's going on behind the scenes. It doesn't just show up because we wished it to show up. It has to have a lot of work involved. So overall, I would say that learning what's going on in the town, what the future holds, is very, very important, and this was a very helpful time.
Good. John?
So I would say two things. Sort of what Dan said, you know, this whole notion of this communication, you know, a lot of it would be way easier if we didn't have all these different constituent groups. But the fact of the matter is, we deal with probably 10 different entities that either impact us or that we're able to impact. And so the communication is critical. The other is, and this has to do with maybe the proactive view, is that I think as a town, we will always better serve our constituents by taking the longer view, whether that means proactively setting things up like an emergency fund, or, you know, what's going to happen in 3 years at that intersection, or, you know, whatever it is. But the longer view is always something that helps you, keeps you from making bad short-term decisions where you have to make a decision a second time or a third time. So, you know, I think this has been very helpful today to kind of understand kind of the direction we're going. And Dan, I know you kind of laughed this off, but it is important that we get along.
Thank goodness.
It makes for way more productive time.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean we agree.
No,
Right.
But we know how to dialogue and we get along.
That's right.
We respect each other.
Scott?
I really don't have anything to say. Everybody has said it really very well, and I would just be an echo chamber. But I do think that comedy, spelled with a T, not a D, is very, very important, and I'm very pleased that everybody in the town, from the council to the staff, all behave in a civilized and a respectful manner with one another in the effort to get their jobs done as best as possible for the constituents that we serve.
Good stuff. Just one other component. Constituents. We have to always keep in mind, peanuts are good, but they make it show. The residents, the full-time residents, are clearly part of our constituents. The part-time residents, those that come here and go back home, that own here and they go back home, they're our constituents also. We have to keep in mind, excuse me, their interests. So as we communicate, anybody had, is this swallowing?
Yeah, water?
No, I'm done. I'll finish up here. Anybody that owns property here, visits here, whatever, are our constituents. So we always have to keep that in mind. And I know we're limited in many ways when we communicate, because unless they've signed up for some of our e-blasts and the like, but we have to figure that out, how we're going to get the message out to even people that spend 6 months here, 3 months here. They have interests. So anyway,
If I can just, I don't have a lot to add. I just want to say that, just kind of want to thank all the staff. Petra, I think these 3 days this week have been,
Very busy.
it's been great for all of us to hear, especially, we sometimes get really busy and kind of a silo, and you're working within your own department. So while we have senior manager meetings to allow open dialogue and discussion, I think it's been very helpful for everyone to have a great dialogue with council and in between staff to understand what each department is working on. But I think it's very important as well to realize that we're all kind of linked in terms of what we do. When we had, I believe, on the agenda, the mayor had, or at least Tuesday, we had those 5 overarching goals, and they really touch every department in a way that when they're thinking about doing things, they think about it based on those goals. So it was very helpful. Here, you guys, with regards to communication, we too agree. And I know with Stephanie, trying to think of creative ways to be able to communicate, because we have we encourage people that if you're not on our e-blast, to please sign up, because we do not have access to Kika's members list. So a lot of times when we communicate, we're only communicating, we're communicating to people that have signed up through our e-blast. So we're encouraging you to do that. We have the website, we have the Kiwa app. We work with property management companies for short-term rentals. We put stuff on our beach patrol for the summer months, magnets. So we're always trying to think of creative ways to be able to communicate proactively. I think that's an excellent point that was made today. With John Taylor in the Planning Commission, I think they'll be able to find opportunities and ways that when they start the comprehensive plan to get community buy-in, because this document is not just something that the town uses to help guide and understand growth and development, but the community at large understands and supports, for the most part, the direction that the town is moving in. We're seeing growth around us. There's been properties that people may not have realized that have been purchased behind Town Hall or along Betsy Harrison. As John had mentioned yesterday with our comprehensive traffic study, we do realize and see and try to be proactive that traffic is coming. And so what can we do as a town? Of course, we have, we don't have a lot of roads to work with, but what can we try to do to try to help ease traffic some? And then the work, of course, for Johns Island, the county with the Johns Island Road. So in that regard, we are trying to be as proactive as we can. But ultimately, I just want to say that, for this year, we have a lot of work. And Bruce, I know he didn't present, but there's a lot of stuff going on in building services with the construction that's going on. So he is very busy with his team. And you'll hear from Stephanie possibly at the next council meeting, or we'll have another retreat, because one of the things I think we forget sometimes is that the mayor and council, the mayor can call workshops anytime. They don't just have to be the first of the year during retreat. So if you all believe that there's a time that we might need to do a 2-hour workshop on something, let us know. We can pull that together, because sometimes that's the best opportunity to really to have communication as opposed to a regular scheduled town council meeting. So we are open for those. But thank you guys for allowing us to present and work with you guys for the last 3 days.
Thank you, and
Thank
thank
you,
all
Stephanie.
of you. Really appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Mr.
Don't forget the blood bank.
And thank you so much, Petra,
Yes.
keeping us
On time.
on time. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank y'all.
Safe travels, Scott.
Yeah,
Have a good trip.
Thank you.
You will.
Are we off?
All right.